watching our movies and loving it.
Awesome.
Great. She must love retirement.
Yep. It's too bad the whole world can't be retired.
One day it will.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out.
Yeah. Peter, are you retired now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Diane and I both retired in 2017, and actually she retired a little earlier than I did, but you know, I mean, I was lucky being a teacher and loving what I did. I didn't really feel like I was working at all anyway.
Yeah.
So these last 5 years since I retired, I'm more or less doing the same thing I was doing before, except I don't go to class.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Some people told me that once you retire, you work harder than you ever did in your whole life.
There's certainly more passion. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Not me.
Well,
You're still at work.
yeah. I don't think I've ever seen David work as hard as since COVID started.
He has done an amazing amount of presentations.
Yep.
And today's presentation, gentlemen, is going to be number 2,580.
Wow.
If you go
Whoa.
back to presentation number 1, which was in the spring of 1960 at Roslyn School.
Wow, that's cool. Congrats.
Thank you.
That was your first astronomy talk. This is 3,000 and change.
2,2,800 and change, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun, and I enjoy doing these. And each one, I especially enjoy this global star party.
Wow.
It's a large group, and it's a very informal group the way Scotty had set it up.
I hope that, that was the hope, that people would just enjoy being here, because, when the pandemic set in and everybody was on lockdown, everyone's sort of, I think they were sort of starving for, the friendship and the exchange of ideas and everything that you can only find with amateur astronomers, right? And so a lot of amateur astronomers, even if they only meet each other once a year or something like that, those friendships last a lifetime. And
Yeah.
You can't really say that about a lot of other things,
Mhm.
Well, Conal, the way I introduced you to Peter was largely in jest, but the night I first met him, so many decades ago, he actually said those things in a lecture he gave at the Houston Center, outlined what he wanted to do, and he's done it. Very proud of Peter.
It's a great story. I have to say, though, we've done very well with the format. I remember, I don't know what time it was, but we did that comet panel, and you talked a little bit about some of your experience, and we kind of shared some photography and stories and all that. I remember Scott had a story about turning a Dobsonian into a water bucket, basically chasing Holly.
That's right.
But that to this day is one of my favorite global star parties. I felt like I could have been sitting in anyone's living room, just sharing the best stories we had from the hobby.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, I imagine this happens at most star parties where, there's a place where a lot of amateurs, maybe they're not observing right at the moment, or they're in between observing sessions with their telescope, and they'll hang out and talk, about all kinds of things, What I do find is that they often don't have a chance to give a short presentation. There's presenters at big star parties, and there'll be a keynote speaker and maybe a few talks before that. But having, the Global Star Party with about, 15 to 20-minute talks, you can get quite a few in one evening, and we've done them every week for a couple of years now. And
Hello, Kareem.
it's been a lot of fun. Kareem, how are you?
Hello, everyone. I am scrambling. How are you?
I was scrambling too.
I just got home from a full day of teaching again, and it's been a really good week, but a really long week. And so it's a new beginning. There you go.
It's a new beginning. That's right. So are you
Hey,
ready
Carl.
to go to Starmus, Kareem?
What's Starmus? I've never heard about it.
You've never heard of it. Yeah.
I'm excited, but I am a little bit bewildered on how I'll get ready for everything. But we will.
Right.
And I'll be seeing you on Sunday, Kareem.
Yes, we're looking forward to that. My son is giving our public event this month. It's exciting. All about Mount Wilson.
So very important.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be careful here, Scott. The Canadians are getting close to outnumbering the Americans on screen. Hey, Peter.
It's part of our plan, right, Kareem?
I've been keeping that silent, but I guess now it's out there.
Oh, don't worry, they're not listening to us anyway.
You'll see, Scott's going to be an honorary Canadian. The Astronomical League is coming here in a couple of years, and yeah.
Some of my best friends in the world are from Canada, so.
Yeah, that's the good news. Most Americans will get to be honorary Canadians anyway.
There you go.
There we go.
You remember the movie Canadian Bacon?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Connell, have you started classes already?
Yes, I did. Just started on Monday. Still working through the start of things, but it was as smooth as it could be, I think.
Excellent.
The chaos was in wrapping up the summer courses. It was 8 credits in 6 weeks, which worked out to the equivalent workload of 21 in a normal semester, and that was nasty.
Yes.
Now things have settled down, oddly enough, that the academic year started, and I'm looking forward to it, certainly.
The structure actually gives it a little bit of sanity.
It does. It really does.
Michael's here. I can't wait to see what he's got. And John's got a quiz ready for us that Connell's going to win, as usual. So,
Right.
So I saw my name on the GSP 100 list. I was pretty happy to see that a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So we
It
had
was a
a
good
little,
event.
we had a little show just about an hour or so ago with Annie, and Annie found these crazy questions, about astronomy, 10 crazy questions. But I'm interested with the group that we have right here. What is an aspect of the universe or astronomy that just absolutely blows your mind? What would you say, Peter?
Well, if you had asked me that question 30, 40, 50 years ago, I would have had a fancy answer. But I think I'm getting to the point where I've seen everything and I'm so jaded, nothing impresses me anymore. So now I have a hard time answering.
That's so sad.
Yeah,
My heart just broke.
I
pitiful.
feel confident. One of the things that amazes me is that you look at the current writing about astronomy and all through our lives and even further back, everybody always says this is the golden age of astronomy.
Yes,
It's been the golden age of astronomy since 1609.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
I mean, I love that. I'm not criticizing. I think that's wonderful.
Yes.
But it kind of makes me sort of feel like, yeah. It's going to be great. There's going to be, the universe is unfolding as it should.
And Peter, if you ask me the same question, and Scotty, I would say passion of the process of observing. Not more than the goals, more than the pictures, more than the comments. It is being out under the stars, looking through a telescope, or watching for meteors. That is what still gets me.
It still
Always
is.
has, and still does.
That's cool. How about you, Michael? Are you there, Michael?
Oh, me. Sorry.
Yeah, how about
I
you?
only heard
How about you?
Oh, yeah. You know, there are so many things. I am fascinated by the kind of quantum edge to things that we've run into in the last few decades, few years for the popular science people like me, who aren't that brainy. Just the concepts of deep time have always fascinated me, and when you run that back to the Big Bang and watch expanding dimensions and stuff, it's just mind-boggling. I love it. I love to look up at the night sky and think that that's the fingerprint of all these things that are going on. It's pretty fun.
Great. Well, it is time to get started, but I think I didn't ask John or Kareem or Connell this question yet, but as you give your presentation, maybe you could start with that. So that's awesome. So here we go. Welcome everybody to, if you're signed on, watching from around the world. We're at the 103rd Global Star Party, New Beginnings, and is the theme. And we're very happy to be here with you tonight.
With all that man has yet to learn about the world beyond his own, much that he now knows can be traced back to a Polish astronomer born 500 years ago. His name, Nicholas Copernicus, the father of modern astronomy, who formulated the concept that the moon and earth revolve around the sun, rather than vice versa. Nearly 5 centuries later, his name has been memorialized in a new space telescope designed by scientists at Princeton University in the United States and University College in London. The Princeton contribution was a large reflecting telescope for detecting invisible ultraviolet radiation. University College designed a new system for monitoring sources of X-ray energy in outer space. Orbiting Astronomical Observatory Copernicus was launched from Cape Kennedy in Florida on August 21st, 1972. Enclosed in the tip of an Atlas Centaur rocket, it was the largest and most complex unmanned spacecraft ever sent into orbit from the United States. Scientists and dignitaries from Poland and England attended the nighttime launch. From the Earth, an astronomer can see millions of light years away, but only in the range of visible light. Cut off from him by Earth's atmosphere are the ultraviolet, infrared, gamma, and X-rays containing secrets of how the universe was born in the darkest reaches of time and space. 500 miles above the atmosphere, conditions are ideal for probing these mysteries. That is where Copernicus is now on full-time duty, using its solar panels for electric power to find and lock on to many stars and dust between the stars where stars are born. Ground stations around the world receive transmissions from Copernicus and relay them to the United States. Astronomers everywhere are pleased with the early results. Material needed to form new stars has been found where none was thought to exist. At least one star system is rotating at a speed that increases almost daily. Other early observations remain to be interpreted as the eye of the new Copernicus continues its studies of invisible clues to the creation of the universe.
This is Scott Roberts from Explore Scientific and the Explore Alliance. And what you just saw was a 50-year-old science production that was put out about that space telescope. And we've had a number of space telescopes up, not just the Hubble Space Telescope, but several others. And and we are going, there's a whole legion of new space telescopes that are on the drawing board now. And with the combination of space-based and ground-based instruments for the professional world and for the amateur world, amateurs doing ongoing investigation of new discoveries, new data that's coming down. We are all improving scientific literacy around the world, and we're on a big adventure. And so the theme of this particular presentation was New Beginnings. And it's because, we are at a point now where we are looking so far back into time with the James Webb Space Telescope that it's causing the cosmologists to rethink, the origins of the universe. And so it is, in a way, new beginnings all the time in the world of science. So anyhow, I wanted to thank you guys for tuning in, and I'm going to turn this over to David Levy, who's once again brought on a special guest. David?
Well, thank you very much. And today I'm introducing my friend Peter Jedicke, who is going to be accompanying me on one more time on our Poetry of the Week session. Peter, I first met him, and Cohn will probably be interested in this, but I first met him in 1978. I was just in the process of separating from my practice marriage, as I like to call it. And Peter was in Kingston giving a lecture to the local organization. And right away near the end of his lecture, he wrote down his career goals to become president of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And we all kind of got a good laugh about it. But I don't think any of us are laughing now, because Peter went on to become national president of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. He is still the honorary president of the London Centre of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. Peter, when it comes to observing together, that we've done for so many years, to me, it's not so much the results that count. It's the process, the passion, being out with the telescope, looking up at the night sky. And so Peter and I are going to attempt to sing for you a song that Peter wrote called The Battle Hymn of the Astronomers. Peter, are you ready?
I am ready, David.
Let's go.
All right. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the whirlpool nebula. I have photographed them 27 in Vulpecula. I know my way around the dust lanes of
the Milky Way.
I read the break of day. Starry skies at Global Star Party 103. Starry skies at Global Star Party. Starry skies at Global Star Party. And clear nights in September. The wonders of the heavens are displayed each night. And nature does reveal itself in everything I see. I feel the vastness of the void. I hear each evening the constellation sing. Starry skies at Global Star Party. Starry skies at Global Star Party. Starry skies at Global Star Party. And clear nights in September.
Ta-da!
Stood upon that silent hill and stared into the sky as the nights grew cold around me and the planets hurtled by across 10,000 parsecs. When I watched the globulars, my eyes are blind with stars. Starry skies at global star party. Starry skies at global star party. Starry skies at global star party. And clear nights in September.
Only on the Global Star Party. So, that's right.
You know,
That's awesome.
it's really kind of sobering to think how much harder it is to sing. And David and I love to sing our songs, when there's not a live audience right in front of you, you know? It's actually quite, I wonder if, you know, folks who make a living performing in music must know the difference between, you know, what it feels like in a studio versus what it feels like to do live performances and so on. It's really kind of neat when you think about what's going on in your mind as you try and do that. But anyway, it's been great fun.
It's awesome.
It's probably the 103rd time David and I have sung that song together.
Maybe more than that. I think it's more than that. We do enjoy it.
I thought that was awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you. You make it fun, man. That's great. Okay. So we are going to transition to the Astronomical League. John Goss is here with us, and the Astronomical League is the world's largest federation of astronomy clubs, but they're not an exclusive organization in the way that that they don't embrace other organizations. This one does. The Astronomical League, I would say, is a very inclusive group. In fact, they're going to be doing an event here with the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, which is the largest federation of astronomy clubs and organizations. It's not really a federation of astronomy clubs because every unit is part of the RASC, but they unite amateur astronomers across Canada. And a lot of United States amateur astronomers also belong to the RASC because of their incredible programs, their outreach, the educational work that they do, and all the great astronomers who've come from Canada, many who have appeared on this program, and including David Levy, who has been on all of our programs. So it's great to have them on. We just finished about a month ago the Astronomical League convention in Albuquerque, and that was an exciting time. We had some great speakers stop by my booth, and we broadcasted some talks live from the Astronomical League convention. We had Seth Shostak, who's the lead astronomer for SETI, give a live presentation as well. That was a lot of fun. So you could see the inner goings-ons at the Astronomical League conferences. And really want to thank them for all the support that they give to our community. And if you don't already belong to the Astronomical League, whether you're in Canada, the United States, or anywhere in the world, you can go to astroleague.org and become a member. So, John, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks for coming on to the 103rd Global Star Party.
Oh, well, thank you, Scott. That was a nice intro plug for the Astronomical League. Really appreciate that. You did mention about Alcon. We have that every year. People ask themselves or other people, why should I go to Alcon? Why should I go to something like that? Well, when you think about it, this is an opportunity for amateur astronomers or stargazers, really, to meet with others, to learn a little bit more about the hobby, to see what other people are up to. It's their chance to speak with people in the field, like magazine editors, book publishers, university professors, astronauts, observatory people, plus other amateurs of all expertise levels. So it's just a great chance to do that and expand your horizons to discover more about amateur astronomy. I think that's all I'm going to say about that. I could go on for another half hour about attending Alcon and things like that.
Sure.
But anyway, Scott, you started out asking, what events or what facets of astronomy really affects us all. And I think about this now and then, and it's one thing leading into another. One part leading into another part. And I'll start out with, really, you get kind of a personal introspective feeling when you look up in the stars, because you are confronting mass, energy, space, and time. All the fundamental concepts of our universe. You can't help but face it. So that kind of blends into when you look at something and you achieve, which I know a lot of people call this the oh wow factor. Yeah. And that's really something. That's really incredible. A couple of months ago, I was at the Green Bank Star Quest, very dark night. I had a fairly small telescope that night, but I was able to see the Veil Nebula. And I don't mutter it very often, but I did say, oh, wow, there it is. I kind of incredulous, but I thought that was pretty good. And again, here I am faced with the concepts of mass, space, time, and energy, time, eternity, the whole range of it all. But anyway, that's not why I am here tonight. I'm here to talk about our door prizes that the League gives away every month. And each Global Star Party, all y'all have a chance of answering 3 questions to be put in the list of winners to have their names drawn at the end of the month, or at least at the next at the next Star Party. So I want to jump into that now and show you what those questions are. If things go well with me. Yes, good. Good, thank you. Let's start this thing here. First of all, we like starting out with just a friendly warning about observing the sun. Some people love observing the sun. Some people have done it quite a bit, but we do have newcomers. And for the newcomers, we just want to make sure that everybody knows how to do this safely. When it's done correctly, it's completely safe. And you tend to forget that it can be dangerous if you're goofing around and not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So be sure you have the correct solar filters placed on the front end of your telescope. Make sure that the telescope is not left unattended, so other people, inexperienced people, who come mess around with it and maybe knock the filters off or something. But when all this is done correctly, it's really a pretty safe activity. And this is going to be coming up because we do have some eclipses in the next couple of years, which are going to be in the news. A lot of people are going to be looking at the sun, and we want to make sure it's always done correctly. The answers from last week's quiz. We had 3 questions. And before I start out, I will remind you that if you are participating this week, be sure to send your excuse me, be sure to send your answers to the secretary at astroleague.org. List your answers. But for last week, let's see what they were. Question number 1. What are the only 2 planets in our solar system without moons? Venus and Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, or Mercury and Venus? Well, hopefully we've all passed the 5th grade course in astronomy and realized it's Mercury and Venus. We talk about how hard or how easy these questions could be. And I'll remind you that a question is only hard if you don't know the answer. So we'll see what happens. Question number 2. Who named Messier 11 the wild duck cluster? That's a beautiful star cluster to look at, and it's ideally situated this time of year. If you have a chance, go out and have a look at it. You can see it in binoculars through a small telescope. Letter A, Admiral Smith. No, I read up. Do you pronounce his name Smith or Smythe? Well, on the internet, it's pretty much divided both ways. Of course, there's Charles Messier or Edwin Hubble. Well, it's Admiral Smith. Question number 3. What term is used for the condition when 3 celestial bodies are arranged in a straight line? This is always one of my favorites because it's such a screwy answer, I think. A, triplex, B, apparition, and C, syzygy. Well, syzygy is it. I think that is a cool name. If I ever had a cat or something or an animal like that, I would think I would name it Syzygy. So the correct answers from this week's, or actually last week's door prize competition: Cameron Gillis, who I don't see on here tonight, Dave Ing, Bill Manley, Adrian Bradley, who I don't see on here tonight, and Ani Yunus. So thank you for participating in that. Now let's get on to the big questions for this week. Again, send them to secretary@astroleague.org. Question number 1. For all you observers out there. For observers in mid-northern latitudes, what well-known asterism is found centered at the zenith when darkness falls in late September or late August and early September? Is it A, the Great Square, B, the Teapot, or C, the Summer Triangle? So think about that, write them down. Question number 2. What planet, I often ask this one a lot. What planet is closest to Earth tonight? These things change all the time. Is it A, Mercury, B, Venus, C, Mars? It helps us know our place in the solar system and how things are in the night sky. Question 3. Which moon is the most massive? Is it Jupiter's Ganymede, Saturn's Titan, or Pluto's Charon? Well, we'll see. So be sure to send your answers in to secretary@astroleague.org, and there'll be a drawing later on for that. Before I get out of here, I want to plug for our next Astronomical League live session, which is in another 3 weeks. On September 16th, that's a Friday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. We're having Brent Maynard, who will talk about preparing for a night of image capture. So if you want to begin amateur imaging, this might be a good place to start. We're also going to have a little focus section hosted by Molly Wasser, who is the deputy director of, get this right, the International Observing the Moon Night from NASA, which she'll be talking about that program. I believe International Observe the Moon Night is October 1st, if my memory serves correct. So that's a chance for everyone to get out and look at the moon. So anyway, thank you for putting up with all this, and be sure to send all your answers in to secretary@astroleague.org. Thank you, Scott. I'll turn it back to you.
So here we are. You can see that I can see Libby's signed on here, and we've got young Navin on as well. And so anyhow, we will get on with the next part. And thanks for sharing, John. Thanks for sharing your views on, what impacts you most about astronomy. That's totally cool. Okay. So up next is Professor Kareem Jaffar. He is from John Abbott University, and he is from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, the Montreal Center. Kareem is somebody I think just almost completely, utterly devoted to educational outreach in astronomy. He does amazing events in Canada where he lives. He's very involved with youth in astronomy, and he's going with me to do a major star party event in Yerevan, Armenia, at an event called Starmus. And so we're all excited about that. And but I'm going to turn it over to you, Kareem. Thanks for coming on to our 103rd Global Star Party.
Oh, thanks, Scott. We're really excited. I cannot wait for Starmus. I'm trying to scramble to get everything ready on my end so that I can just enjoy the experience. I watched the special that you and David Eicher and I believe Michael also. Yeah, Michael Bakich also. The three of you put together. I watched it last night while I was prepping today's class, and just got a chance to enjoy seeing how passionate the three of you are about the astrophotography week leading up to Starmus and then Starmus itself. That's just going to be wonderful.
I can't wait, really. I've been thinking about it, dreaming about it, and so it's definitely a bucket list item for me. What I think is great is that the organization Starmus made it affordable for people to go.
Yes.
and this year it's in Yerevan, Armenia. I know that sounds like a long ways away, but international travel is not as expensive as what a lot of people think it might be.
It's a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, that's right. One of the jumps is a long jump, but
that's just because of the water in the middle. Otherwise you get there pretty quickly.
That's right. That's right. And
no, even just listening to the lineup, I mean, we've got, Kip Thorne, Chris Hadfield's going to be there for the Canadians that are interested in coming over. Rick Wakeman, we've got on the board of directors, Brian May. Yeah. And he's with Garrick Israelian on the board of directors. Then you'll even have Peter Gabriel and Richard Dawkins on the board of directors. I mean, there's just amazing people involved in this festival. Yep. And so
you got Charlie Duke, Charles Bolden, Jim Bajian, Chris Hadfield's going to be there, Garrett Reisman. These are all astronauts.
And Charlie Duke, right as Artemis is on its way to the moon, is just such wonderful timing.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Knock on wood. It hasn't launched yet. We're waiting for that on Monday. Yeah. So I'm gonna do a small presentation about the theme today, New Beginnings. And I will say, complete transparency, I just put the presentation together on the fly now. I had ideas in my head.
Professional.
I didn't have time to put anything down in advance, but it's because there's so much to talk about when it comes to new beginnings. And I thought a great place to start is actually with a land and sky acknowledgement, because I just did the two-eyed seeing talk for my students today. And I talked to them a little bit about the respect we show to the First Nations, the fact that we share the sky with them. And new beginnings, we are just ending one lunar month and about to begin another. The moon this past couple of days has been this waning crescent that's just barely visible now in the early morning before the sun rises. And we are moving from what the settlers called the sturgeon moon, based on the fish that has its genetic code 135 million years old for that species. Wow. And now we're moving off to the harvest moon, which indicates another element of appreciation of what the moon does, because the harvest moon recognizes the fact that at the autumnal equinox, the moon's rising around the full moon actually only happens about 20 minutes apart at latitudes close to Montreal. Higher up you go, the closer together the moon's rising is when you're passing that equinox phase, and then it'll go back to being 50 minutes apart for every single phase of the moon, rising, day after day, and you go through all that. But during the equinox, there's this special geometry that means that the moon rises early every evening around the full moon, which meant for farmers, your day was extended, and you could take in all the harvest to prepare for the winter. So that appreciation of the new beginning and then the idea of what moon is coming is something that's implicit in the First Nations. I talk often about the Mi'kmaq moons, and there's a book coming out now in October from Dave Chapman and Kathy LeBlanc from Nova Scotia. The Mi'kmaq moon that's finishing is berry ripening, and the one that's starting is the mating moon. And it's kind of cool to see that this appreciation of what's happening in nature mimicked or echoed in a lot of different cultures, because the Cree call it the rutting moon, based on the moose scraping the velvet off their antlers as a mating call. And so there really is this connection to what we're seeing in nature. And I'm talking about the moon, so I have to talk about Artemis 1. Because if everything goes well, Artemis 1 is going to launch on Monday. And that's a new beginning for not just the US space program, but for everyone, because it's humanity's return to the moon. And the Artemis 1 is an uncrewed mission just to go by the moon, make sure everything's working well. And then the Artemis 2 crewed mission won't land, but it will go around the moon, and it will include a Canadian astronaut in the contingent on the crew going there. And then Artemis 3, if everything goes smoothly, will indicate our first steps on the moon since 50 years ago this December. So that is an incredible new beginning for everyone interested in space exploration. We are celebrating it this Saturday as part of the Family Day at the Montreal Aviation Museum, which is something that we do every summer. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is twofold. First, you've got my wife there with all of our RASC material, giving it out and answering everyone's questions from last year, or actually from the last pre-COVID year. but secondly, because the organizer there is a NASA space educator, Diana Phillips. And today, all of a sudden, Diana Phillips got the information from a sponsor that they are sending her for the Artemis launch. So she's going to be there on Monday, if everything goes well, to watch the launch in person. So I just want to do a shout out to Diana because I know how incredibly excited she is, but she tries to catch our global star parties whenever she can. So I wanted to point out, like, this is just an incredible opportunity for her. On Monday, our Space Oddities will be talking Artemis. We're going to hopefully share a little bit of the live launch. And then during our weekly show, we're going to be talking about all things Artemis. And I'm going to be discussing a little bit about the orbit and the decision for when the window opens for the Artemis crew or for the Artemis mission to actually launch in the SLS system and how it's actually going to operate to go there. Before that, on Sunday, we have our next public event. And for me, this is another sort of a new beginning because this is the last event co-hosted with the Space Club while my son is an executive of it, and he's the one presenting it because he got to spend 2 weeks at Mount Wilson as part of the SOAR program. So he's going to be talking about his experience. And we're looking at a new executive for the Space Club, and he himself is starting a completely new beginning at University of Ottawa next week in the Honors Physics Math program. So I've already told him that he has to make friends with Connell and make sure that they can chat and share experiences because Connell's right around at the same level as him because coming out of the Cégep, he goes straight into second year at university when he goes outside of the province. The other way it's a new beginning is, as I mentioned, this is our first week of classes here at John Abbott. And all the way back in GSP 48. Now, Scott, GSP 48, that's like June of last year. Yeah. That was just after I had done the co-hosting with Russell of GSP 45, our big marathon for International Astronomy Day. Right. And you had asked me, can I come back and talk a little bit about what I'm doing at the college with my students? And I gave a whole presentation in GSP 48 about the way my students approach observational astronomy, outreach, the way in which we connect with the RASC Montreal Center. And we had our SHAD event again this year, and it was incredible to see a few of the students who didn't have a chance because of COVID to be out in person, to have that opportunity. But, you know, talking to my students the last 3 days, I was worried I was going to be giving them whiplash. But yesterday in the clubhouse, one of the students joined in, and then by the evening, he was talking about binoculars and getting advice. And a couple of the students have already borrowed telescopes from me for the weekend. A bunch of students have stayed back to ask questions about everything. And even during my intro to the night sky, I happened to mention the black hole picture at the center of our galaxy, and I gave them the Sky News magazine that showcases it. And the students wanted to talk black holes for about 3, 4, 5 minutes, and they still had more questions. And I said, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. You just got to hold your horses. We've got to build up to it. But the excitement and the interest in learning at the new beginning, it drives you. It keeps you going. And tomorrow I have my first meeting with my honor science cohort because I'm now the honor science coordinator here at the college. Another new beginning, another new hat to put on, but it's one that I'm really excited about because those are students who really, they're ready for leadership positions. They're ready for outreach. They're ready for involvement on these campuses because they're go-getters, they're performers, and they want to know more about how everything connects together. And so I'm looking forward to try to take a little bit of what I do with astronomy and bring it into the honor science in a way that encompasses all of STEAM, not just STEM, but also the art component. So talking about the art component, one more new beginning. Scott mentioned James Webb Space Telescope. And even before we get to the beginning of the universe, the cosmic cliffs from the Carina Nebula, one of the first images released by James Webb Space Telescope, has led to an enhanced understanding and more theoretical work being done on the new beginning of stars being born. Oh, wow. Because Hubble could not look past the edges of that dust curtain there. And when you compare the Hubble picture to the James Webb picture not just it's not just that it shows more of the stars, but these cavities, these pockets that show as the stars are being born, the space that they're carving out for themselves inside these dust clouds enhances our understanding from what we've had from examining the Orion Nebula and other star forming regions. But what Scott was alluding to is something that I did put into my presentation, which is when you look at the deep space images coming from James Webb, even just that first one that was presented by President Biden, you compare it to Hubble, to James Webb, and we were all blown away by the number of additional galaxies, by the resolution on those galaxies. And that resolution on those galaxies is where this new cosmological conundrum has come from. Because what we've determined based on the redshifts and what we see morphologically is that there seem to be a lot more spiral evolved, actually what appear to be well organized galaxies very close to the dawn of time, very close to when the first formation of materials would have been happening. And that doesn't match with what our understanding was of the way in which we started from the Big Bang, reached the cosmic dawn, and then started to have structure forming in the universe. So the very beginning of time itself is currently under consideration. And so our theories and our understanding over the next few years is going to constantly be challenged. And so we have to be open to a new interpretation of those beginnings that matches with the actual evidence that we see. And with that, I'm going to put in a caveat that it's important to recognize that any redshift measurements have to go with distance in order for you to determine whether or not it's a reliable measure of what you're seeing for these galaxies. So the redshift measurements themselves have to be as precise and as accurate as possible. And you need more than one measurement in science to say that this is a verified observation. So as much as I'd love to jump in front of the train and say, yes, all of cosmology is wrong, let's rethink everything, we can't. That's not responsible science. Responsible science is to say, we have evidence now that throws question on our understanding of the way in which matter formed and galaxies evolved and formed structure. And now we need to design what our next observations, what our next experiments, even what our next telescope is going to be in order to further delve into this particular question. So with that, I'm going to again mention, as Scott said, my new beginning, my new challenge, my new experience. I have not flown anywhere in many, many years because of my own medical condition. I was very afraid to, and I'm taken on the challenge, and I'm really excited about going to Starmist, going to Armenia, being part of this incredible festival, and especially on the Thursday night, getting up on the mountaintop in Garni with Scott's crew of telescopes, whatever he brings us. And even if there's no telescopes, I'm just going to sit there pointing out stars and pointing out constellations, pointing out asterisms, telling stories, and listening to the stories of the people of Armenia and the guests that come from around the world. Because this is an opportunity not just to share what you know, but to learn from others as well. So with that, from the RAC Montreal Center, thank you very much. Scott, back to you.
Fantastic presentation as always. That's great. Okay, well, everyone, we are bringing back Libby in the stars. She's been gone for a while. She did go to the Nebraska Star Party, and she's doing what any young lady should be doing at this time, and that is enjoying her life at school. And she's right now at a football field, beaming in live from her other activities here. Libby, thanks for coming on to Global Star Party.
Hello. I'm on my phone right now, so bear with me. I do have a presentation, so let me see if I can get to present. How do I present on a phone? Okay, I'm just gonna kind of share with you the stuff on the slide, even though I can't share the slide. So while I was at the NSP this year, I got to meet some amazing speakers, and one of them that I got to meet talked a lot about quasars. And I was kind of interested about quasars because I was like, I've never heard about this before. So I wanted to kind of do a little presentation on quasars. First of all, I want to cover what are quasars. So quasars, astronomers first began to notice them in the late 1950s and early 60s. But quasars aren't stars; they're actually young galaxies. They're very distant from our planet Earth, but how are they so far away and we can still see them? Well, quasars are very bright. They're even brighter than our own galaxy. These quasars are highly active, and that's why they are so bright. So basically, quasars, they're really bright objects that astronomers started to notice, and we thought that they would actually be very close to our planet Earth, but apparently they're not. They're actually really active young galaxies. They can be even up to 1,100 times brighter than our own galaxy.
Wow.
One thing I've heard about quasars being the center of galaxies. So with recent studies, astronomers are now believing that quasars are the centers of galaxies. After more research, we have another term for quasars, active galactic nucleus, AGN to simplify it. Basically, this means it's the center of a forming galaxy because they give off so much radiation powers, so they can power a supermassive black hole. As matter in a quasar, a black hole's accretion disk heats up and it generates radio waves, X-rays, ultraviolet, and visible light. This makes quasars visible, and this is why they're so visible to us, even though they're so far away. I have a picture here, but I can't share it with you. But it's a model of an active galactic nuclei, and it's kind of like a model of like the building of it. But I wanted to show you guys it. I can't, but it's the accretion disk that heats up that makes it so visible from our planet Earth. The quasar becomes so bright that it's able to outshine galaxies. So another type, I wanted to talk about a type of AGN. So these are called Seyfert galaxies. On the other hand, there are galaxies that are not classified as quasars, but still have the bright active centers where we can see the rest of the galaxy. An example of this type of AGN is the Seyfert galaxy. Messier 77, if you guys have ever seen that, it's pictured on the slideshow, but I can't show you guys that. It is pictured though, over on the other side if you guys have ever seen it. It is a classified Seyfert galaxy. The Seyfert galaxies actually make up 10% of the galaxies in the universe. However, they're not classified as quasars because they're much younger galaxies. And usually the Seyfert galaxies have more construction to them and you can kind of see them better. But the typical ones, they're a little bit more loose. So actually recently I just got back from the Nebraska Star Party and it's been a while, so I wanted to come on here and talk about it. But I had an amazing time at the Star Party this year. It was great to meet a bunch of different people because I'm so used to coming on the virtual Star Party and be like, oh, you're muted. But here I was like, oh, it's an actual audience. So I was so glad that I got to experience presenting in real life because a lot of times it was weird because I know I do have a lot of viewers on here, but it's weird being in real life. I get to see how many people that actually is.
Yes.
And I actually got to speak with a bunch of other different speakers, and I love getting to meet a bunch of different people. A lot of great memories were made. I actually won a door prize while I was there for a telescope. And I remember actually crying when they said my name because I was like, oh my gosh, this is over. And I was waddling back to my
awesome.
car.
I heard, Libby, I heard you gave a terrific talk at Nebraska Star Party. So you must have been really energized by the whole experience. I think that's great.
Oh, thank you. Whoever said that, thank you. It was kind of stressful at the same time because every single night we were staying up late till 3, like out at the park, and then like 3 at the earliest, and then we would like sleep in the car a little bit, then go back to the hotel because we didn't bring a tent. So I would show up with the presentation. I'd be like, oh, I'm probably gonna be super tired. I'll probably just be like, you know what, let's do this. Let's do this. But I got there and I was like super nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, this is more people than I thought. I got to meet a bunch of people my age who were interested in astronomy. I know I made a couple friends there, and I would like to thank Kent from Explore Scientific for helping me a lot during the star party. I forgot to bring a lot of things, and luckily Kent was there to help me.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, there was a couple storms that moved in and out, and I really loved watching it and watching the lightning, and it was super pretty to be out there. And I mean, it's just like there's no better feeling than being out on the road and like it being completely open. It was absolutely like beautiful out there with all the sand hills. I'm already having on the calendar for next year. I want to go back and I want to stay on campus of the star party, so that way it was a 30-minute drive back and forth from the hotel to the Nebraska star party.
Right.
And I think I would like it better if I stayed on property and everything, but it was beautiful even to drive back and getting to see all the pretty stars. And like, I mean, you could like the first night that I got there, it was storming, but like the next night when I got out there and I saw the stars once it started getting dark, I was like, oh wow, this is super pretty. And then it just got better and better by the minute because it just kept on getting darker. My eyes were adjusting. And I mean, everybody was super friendly at the star party. My Dobsonian telescope, since it's such a big telescope, I had to carry it up to the hotel room every night. Like on the little thing, I would like put it in the buggy and like bring up the mirror box and everything. And the hotel people would be like, what is that? And they're like, it's a telescope. But a lot of people were really nice. And even some of my telescopes, since I was setting them up, like one night I didn't really have time to, I had time, but it was kind of difficult to set up an observe. So I went down Job Row at the Nebraska Star Party, and like everybody was super nice, and they like, hey, we're looking at Messier 50 something, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And they'd be like, yeah, so this is actually this, and everybody was just super nice and caring, and it was just so fun to be at like seeing how many people there really are who join. And it was just weird being out there too, because where I live in Bentonville, there's so many Walmarts that like every corner that you turn, there's a Walmart, but there wasn't a Walmart for a good 5 hours where I was at. So it was just super fun being out there, and I really enjoyed it, and I got to meet a bunch of new people. My speech on quasars is actually inspired by one of the speakers who spoke at the star party, named Diana, who spoke about quasars and her research on quasars. So I thought it would be a good idea to kind of come on here and talk about it, because I was kind of interested after she started talking about it and her research in it and everything.
That's great. That's great. So Libby, did you think that the Nebraska Star Party was kind of like a good event for a whole family to come to, or do you think it's just for amateur astronomers, or how do you feel about the event itself?
So actually, I went to the Nebraska Star Party board meeting the last couple of days, and I suggested that they have an amateur row for amateurs to come and set up, and
Newbies.
They can all get involved. And I would definitely say it was a family event, because I saw lots of little kids there who came up to me and were saying hi. And I was like, and a lot of them said that their parents brought them there and that they were enjoying it. And even they had kids store prizes, which I was into the kids store prizes. And I saw lots of kids at beginner field school, and I definitely think it's definitely a family event. because you can come out there and camp, and I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. I mean, the sand hills and like all like the like amazing like nature that's out there. I would definitely say it's something that like a whole family could come to, because even if you don't have a telescope, or you're not sure, or you didn't bring yours, or you only brought a pair of binoculars, everybody is always willing to share their view with you.
Yeah.
And they're always helpful. And even just going for beginner field school, I went to beginner field school every day, and I got to learn some amazing things that, you know, I like, yeah, it was just amazing.
That's cool. That's cool. Now, Nebraska Star Party is also known for its super dark skies. It's probably the darkest skies you've ever been to, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, it was.
How would you describe it?
Well, the first couple of nights it was stormy, so I was pretty upset by that. But if I had to describe it in one word, I would say like pitch black. It was, and in the stars you could see your shadow from the Milky Way. And it was everybody took the red light thing serious. I had some red lights that I used, and we were really cautious about making sure that the car lights didn't come on. And everything. And everybody was really good about that. And I mean, really, Valentine, Nebraska, there's not a lot of things out there like people. So, I mean, they were talking about it, and the less population, they're like, the less population, the less light.
That's true.
And I know they were even talking about as meeting at the board meeting that we finally got the dark as ink skies. And I would definitely describe it as that, because I mean, even at my house, the sky is black, but you won't see stars. But when I went out there, the sky was black, and you could see the whole Milky Way across the sky. And I downloaded Nightcap on my mom's phone, because she has a really nice phone camera. And even without Nightcap, and with Nightcap, just putting your phone up to the sky and taking a picture, she captured multiple stars, galaxies, and constellations. So
amazing. That's amazing. That's great. Well, Libby, thanks for taking your time out to be with us on this Global Star Party. We hope to have you back soon.
In this remote setting.
In this remote setting, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's beautiful. That's great.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks so much, Libby. Okay. Bye. Well, we are going to go to young Naveen Senthil Kumar, who is giving his next presentation. Naveen, I did not get the name of your presentation, but perhaps you can present it now. But I want to ask you the same question that I was asking other people here tonight. Out of all the things that you have experienced about astronomy and the universe, what is the one thing that really just blows your mind?
The most thing I'm curious about right now is the Big Bang Theory. I still plan to learn more about it, and hopefully I gather more knowledge about it in the coming years, and I hopefully I get an answer for it.
I think you'll be one of the guys that'll be studying hard to figure it out. That's great. That's great. And what is your presentation tonight?
Today my presentation is going to be on exoplanets, because I thought the theme is about life and like new beginnings and things like that. So
yes,
I'd get a presentation relevant to that. So yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, you got the stage.
So let me share my screen. You see my screen?
It's coming up. Yep. How to find exoplanets. There you go.
Exoplanets by Naveen Senthil Kumar. So let's firstly talk about what we know about exoplanets. We know that NASA and ESA and amateur astronomers have found about 5,000 exoplanets. We know maybe more, but they're still finding them every day. So many planets they've found traces of life. They haven't really. We don't know if there's life, but there's a lot of Earth-like planets like Earth with all the Earth resources, and that may sustain life. But the good thing in the future, we might be able with newer satellites and space technology and telescopes and all that crazy stuff coming. We might be able to find and gather more knowledge about exoplanets. And now we're gonna talk about methods to find exoplanets technically. So I have 6 ways that you amateur astronomers can start finding exoplanets. All right, so let's talk about it. First thing is radial velocity. It's basically watching for wobble in like a planet, like so. It's basically on the fact like the star doesn't really remain completely like stationary, or like it doesn't stay still necessarily while it orbits, and we can find it by its orbit technically. So it's like by figuring out the gravity, because gravity pulls on everything, and stars can pull planets, and planets technically pull stars. So like for example, like we're like on Earth, like technically Earth, and like the 8 planets in our solar system are technically like pulled by the sun's gravity right now. Or else if we weren't within the sun's gravity and like the sun's radius, we'd all be just way out in the middle of nowhere floating, I guess, like stars maybe. So yeah, that's radial velocity. Let's talk about the good things and the bad things. It's great for finding big exoplanets in close orbits. It's great for measuring how big an exoplanet is, and it uses ground-based telescopes. And amateurs can do this pretty easily. Not so good for finding exoplanets in distant orbits. Not so good for measuring diameters for exoplanets. And it's not so good for finding little teeny tiny exoplanets like our Earth and stuff. All right, so let's go to the second method. It's transit, or the transit photometry method. It's basically about orbits. So as a planet orbits around the star, they technically light blocks the star, technically, which is the planet, which makes the planet easily visible to our telescopes technically. So it's the light that comes to from the star, like the planet, that comes to us, so we get to know it's there. All right, now this is a pretty easy method. It's like an amateur method, so it's like direct imaging, or as we know, directly taking pictures. As you see, we point a telescope from an observatory up, and we take a picture of a couple stars, and we directly just see exoplanets. We zoom in, and if you see, it's basically using infrared, which ends up like this. So you get to decide, like you get to see like hot spots and like all sorts of fancy stuff like that, which you get to see, and you end up with images like this: planet B, planet C, planet D, that kind of stuff. So now let's talk about method number 4, microlensing. Did you know gravity can basically bend light? It's true. So when a star passes through in front of another, it bends technically the light like a lens, it magnifies it, making it brighter. If the lens making star has a planet, it makes the star even brighter, so it magnifies the star. So you technically have the star right here, the lens, which is the exoplanet, and you get to view it from Earth. So yeah, let's talk about method number 5, astrometry. Stars and exoplanets can get pulled together, and it gets crazy and all that stuff. So they pull on it, and they get the star in unexpected paths. Then we notice a star moving irregularly in comparison to other nearby stars. So that's going to signal us with an exoplanet. So let's go to number 6, timing variations. It's basically like tug of war, like a game of tug of war where you have to pull on one side and pull on the other. It's basically when the star firstly starts pulling on us on like a planet, and then it pulls and attracts another exoplanet, and that tug of war gets some sort of unusual pattern or algorithm, which telescopes can read, and we know it signals like in exoplanets there in that specific area. All right, that's all for my presentation. Thank you. That was a pretty short, quick presentation, and hopefully it was helpful, and hopefully you can start finding exoplanets on your own with my information. Scott, you're on mute, by the way.
Myself. How about that? Is that better?
I will hear you now.
No, it's a very good presentation, Naveen, on exoplanets and the way that they're studied. We're associated with an organization called the Mark Slade Remote Observatory, and they use a 6.5-inch refractor to detect exoplanets. And so, the thing that's amazing, I think, is that you can use fairly modest equipment, but careful recording techniques, and do follow-on observations with the test team. And you can make observations of exoplanets, especially like eclipsing ones, okay, where you can watch a light curve. There is something called a diffuser, and the diffusers cost $200 or $300, okay, but they fit in like a filter, okay, and this goes right in front of the lens, and that diffuser looks like ground glass, but in reality it's a bunch of tiny little lenses. And what it does is it takes the light, spreads it out over all these tiny little lenses, and then instead of the starlight falling on just a few pixels of your sensor, it now falls on hundreds or thousands of pixels. And what that does is it gives you a better signal to noise ratio. It allows you to eliminate some problems like periodic error in your mount, little drive errors, scintillation problems that can mess with your photometric data. And so with a very modest investment, you can be making real high precision photometric studies. So if you're ever interested in that, Navin, or anyone else that's listening, get in touch with me and I will hook you up so that you can find out more about this diffuser and you can start doing the diffuser photometric method. So it doesn't take a lot of fancy equipment. I think that most of the software is free, and but the diffuser is really a remarkable advancement.
Pretty much finding exoplanets is pretty much any amateur astronomer can do. So that's why I wanted to share this, and it would be pretty useful for everyone. So
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, I mean, that would have been something years ago that would have probably only been left for the professionals to do. So it's great that we can do it too.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So up next, Naveen, thank you very much again, and hope to have you back on Global Star Party real soon.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Our next speaker is author and space artist Michael Carroll. And Michael, his presentation is Deep Time and Exoplanets. So we are getting a nice double dose of exoplanet presentations here. I love it. And Michael, thank you so much for coming on again on Global Star Party.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks so much. Naveen did a great job, and so I will be able to skip a bunch of my spots, which is good.
Anything to make it easier. Yes.
Yes, right. So I'll cut to the chase. The main part of what I'm going to be talking about tonight is some views of some of my favorite exoplanets that we've discovered. But before that, let me go into screen sharing here. And let's see if this will work. Hi. There we go. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So here we are, new beginnings. First, I want to talk a little bit about deep time. You know, we've all talked about how telescopes are like time machines, and we can look through them and we'll see the way the Andromeda galaxy was 2.5 million years ago. I think that's the distance. But I was thinking about what would happen if somebody else was looking through a telescope from the other end. That gives us a different perspective on deep time. Yes, telescopes are like time machines, and if you had one in Andromeda, it would be like a time machine looking back on the Earth itself. Light is moving away from the Earth like the waves in a pond when you drop a little pebble in. So what happens if there's somebody with maybe a little bit different architecture looking back our direction, seeing light from the Earth today? What would they see? As you know, we look at the sun and we're seeing the sun as it was about 8 minutes ago. It takes that long for light to travel. We can do the same thing by looking at some of these other nearby and not so close objects. So let's have a look here. I need to rearrange my screen so I can see. Okay.
Michael, is this an illustration that you did?
Yes, it is.
Solar system. Yeah. It's fantastic. It's great.
Thanks. So it's fun to think about things in these terms. Kepler 22, for example, is a somewhat sun-like star. I think it's a K star, a little bit smaller and cooler, 600 light years away. If somebody was sitting out there today, what would they see looking back at the Earth? My screen is not moving. Oh, there we go. Kepler 22 is an interesting system. It does have a super Earth, apparently right in the habitable zone, in the inside edge. So it's probably a little toasty, but it's big enough that it may well be a water world. And if you had somebody out there with a telescope floating on the surface of that ocean, today they would be seeing the Renaissance on the Earth. They would be able to see, if they had a really good telescope, they'd be able to see Leonardo painting the Mona Lisa.
That's cool.
If we move out just a little bit more to the Orion Nebula and look back at the Earth today again, light waves from the Caliphate of Cordoba are just reaching the trapezium right now. But go a little further to the great blue giant Deneb, beautiful blue star. People in orbit around Deneb will be seeing the Roman Empire of Constantine. That light is reaching Deneb today, this moment. Let's go out a little further. What about 5,000 light year away, the Garnet star, Mu Cephei? Is that the way you say it? Cephei?
Sounds about right.
Okay. I've seen it written, but I haven't heard it. Anyway, out there, we would be the light from ancient Babylon, ancient Egypt, the Minoan Empire. That light is reaching the Garnet star today as we speak. Moving out further, the Large Magellanic Cloud, we see the end of the Neanderthals, our beautiful kind of almost twin galaxy, sister galaxy, Andromeda, is looking back at the beginning of the ice ages, and the first great fauna of the ice ages we'll see way out there at 10.4 million light years, I think that is. So just a little bit different way of looking at the telescope as a time machine and noticing that light and the way light travels really does help us to envision traveling through time. So let me, here we go.
Nice effect.
So it's, we're familiar with this. Somewhere out there, there may be somebody on an Earth-like planet looking back at us and saying, what were they thinking? So, new beginnings in our search for other worlds. There have been quite a few. It's been an exciting time ever since the Kepler Observatory got going. We've had some breakthroughs in our search for Earth-like and other exoplanets. Naveen did a great job of covering some of these techniques that we use to find other planets. Transits, of course, are what Kepler uses or used in its spectacular mission, just watching the light levels of a star drop as a planet goes by. And as he mentioned, you can see all kinds of things about a planet when it does that. These diagrams get very complex when there are multiple stars. And then, of course, we've got the microlensing method, where you see a brightening of an object because of the warping of gravity, but it brightens up twice if it's got a big planet alongside of it. So this is another technique that has really come to the fore recently. It's matured. It didn't used to work too well, but it does now. And now here we are with radial velocity, looking at a normal star. Here it is sitting, just plopping out a little nice yellow light, but then, oh wait, something mysterious happens. Yes, that light changes, it shifts in color, goes toward the red, and then it goes back to normal. What could be happening? But then wait, it gets blue. It's because that star is wobbling back and forth toward and away from us. And because of the way it does that, we can time it and see how massive the unseen planet is that is tugging away on that star. And by the way, even our own sun gets yanked around quite a bit by Jupiter, primarily, a little bit by Saturn. But if you look at the way our sun has moved, if you set back around 30 light years or so, this is what you would see. This is how much our sun moved in the sky.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing. So what did we find with all those initial things, the first 3,500 or so planets that we discovered with the Kepler Space Telescope alone? This doesn't even count all those other techniques, but larger than Jupiter planets, there were about 102 out of 3,500. That's not a lot. Jupiter-sized planets, 229. That's more, but what's surprising is how many Neptune-sized planets. By far, the majority of things we have found out there are about the size of an ice giant in our solar system. Some of this is within the data. It's skewed a little bit because you can find bigger planets much more easily. But nevertheless, we are getting an interesting curve. Super Earth planets between the size of Earth and Neptune come in second, a close second, 1,000 of them, over 1,000 in those 3,000. So a third of the planets that we've been finding are super Earths. Earth-sized planets come in at 674. So if you combine those two, you find that planets about the size of the Earth that may have some similar conditions depending on their orbits, they're the majority. So let's talk about a few of them. The habitable zone is a very, very important part of the equation if you're looking for an exoplanet that is Earth-like. We arguably have 3 planets in our habitable zone. Venus is probably not quite in it. It's close to the sun. Mars may well be in the habitable zone. If it had more atmosphere, it would be quite a different place. Earth is smack dab in the middle. And again, the habitable zone is the area around a star where you can have liquid water on the surface of a world. There are habitable zones different for each star, unique for each star. And if the star is bigger and hotter, that habitable zone will be a little bit further away. If the star is a red dwarf, a nice cool thing, that habitable zone will be very, very close, probably equivalent to the inside of Mercury in most cases. So looking at Kepler 62, there's some interesting things going on up there. 62F and E are both well within the habitable zone of this little red dwarf. There are several other planets that are pretty close to Earth size, but very, very close to the sun. So they'll be really hot worlds. But let's take a look at what we might see at Kepler 62, E, and F. Oh, by the way, if you want to see some nice images of planets, envisioning exoplanets, I did for Smithsonian. And what I like about this book is it shows off the work of my colleagues. It has lots and lots of space art by very, very talented people. So if you want to pick one up, you can browse through some of these beautiful views of exoplanets. And science has gotten to the point where we have enough data that we can make a pretty accurate guess, hopefully, as to what conditions are like. Now, Kepler 62e is on the inside edge of that habitable zone. Wow. It is likely a super Earth. So it's big enough that it's going to be covered in a global ocean. It's also big enough that it's probably got multiple moons, but it is tidally locked to its red dwarf star. It's close enough that it's going to keep one face toward that star at all times. Then the next step out, of course, is Kepler 62F. And it's also a water world, but it's probably below the freezing point. So although it has a global ocean like its sister world, that ocean is going to look very different. It's going to be a lot whiter. Here we are at Kepler 432, I think. All the little boxes are in the way of my screen here, but this is one of the Earth-sized planets that are orbiting in the habitable zone of a red dwarf. But there's a problem with red dwarfs. They're very cool, so you have to be really close to them to have liquid water. And we call red dwarfs flare stars because every once in a while they blob out big chunks of radioactive material like this one is. You can see the tongue of a flare to the lower right, and that's not very good. It gives you an area that's a lot like a surgical unit, nice and sterile. There are some things that might enable these worlds to have life. For example, if you get a strong magnetic field, if you have a big molten core, you will have a natural shield for some of this radiation. Also, again, these worlds are mostly tidally locked, which means that you're going to have an entire hemisphere that doesn't get all of the radiation that the sunlit side does. And you can imagine something along the Terminator where you would have the best of both worlds. This is another one of those tidally locked planets. There are many of these. We call them eyeball planets because they keep one face toward the sun, which means that it's hottest right at the subsolar point. In the case of an ocean world, a super Earth, you'll have global ocean that begins to freeze as you reach the terminator, the line between day and night. But the subsolar point that points right at the sun is going to be nice and toasty and maybe even boiling in some cases. Here's another one, a more terrestrial version of an eyeball world where you would get desert conditions way over toward the side that faces the star, but along the terminator you'll get liquid water and jungles and shopping malls. So, of course, nearby we have found Proxima Centauri B, and this is very exciting. Proxima is a red dwarf. You can't see it with your eyeballs. 90% of the stars in the sky are invisible to us without a telescope. They're all red dwarfs. You know, in a lot of the science textbooks, they talk about how the sun is an average star. Well, it's not really true. The sun is bigger than average. At the average star, stars are these cool, small red things. Very, very ancient, some of them. And it turns out that at Proxima, which is a mere 4.2 light years away, there is probably a super Earth. We're not quite sure of how big it is. We're not quite sure how close it is to the star. And what that does is it gives us a range of possibilities. Proxima may be an ocean world, a super Earth, something like this. On the left, but it may also be even bigger, something a little closer to a sub-Neptune world. Here we are looking at it from an Earth-like moon. It may have a whole lot of atmosphere and be too close to the sun for its habitable zone, so that would give you a more Venus-like world, or it may just be like home sweet home. And wouldn't that be wonderful? Because we have technology today that is on the verge of the capability of getting to Proxima in 50 or so years. So people are envisioning flotillas of micro spacecraft riding laser beams out to Proxima to show us which of these versions we really have out there. There are some weird planets out there, folks. I love this one. This one is so close to its star that it's falling apart. The solar wind is tearing it to pieces, and we can tell because we've only seen this in the transit method, but the thing is dragging a tail of debris behind it. And so we think that it's it's just a mess. Not a good place for a picnic. It's way too close to that star of its. So let's see. A strange case of TRAPPIST-1. My current favorite system is the TRAPPIST-1 system because it has 7, count them 7, planets that are roughly the size of the Earth. They all orbit super close to each other, so you would have tons of eclipses, you would have tons of planetary conjunctions. The night sky at TRAPPIST-1 would be absolutely spectacular. Let's take a look at a couple of the worlds out there. Earth size, not necessarily Earth-like, okay? So we'll keep that in mind. Some of them, here's one of them, the closest one, TRAPPIST-1 B, is probably molten. It's very, very close. Even though the star is a nice, cool red dwarf-ish, I think it's fairly big for a red dwarf, you probably have a stormy, toxic sky with oceans of magma. This is TRAPPIST-1 B. Well, let's move out a step or two, and then we'd be able, we're getting far enough away that we can have liquid water on the surface and conditions that may be quite Earth-like, at least a thin atmosphere as opposed to a kind of Venusian or Jovian thing. These are rocky worlds, but as we move out, they're becoming more and more icy. a lot of times we'll view these images by from a viewpoint of looking toward the star, but what if you turned around? I thought it would be fun to look away from it. Here are the three next outer planets, all roughly Earth size. To give you an idea of scale, the one on the left appears about the size of a full moon in our sky. Okay, so you would see this view periodically. It would be spectacular. Go. And then finally, if we move way out to the edge of the system, we'll be able to see it in all its glory. All of those planets trundling back and forth, eclipsing the star. It would be pretty chilly out here, probably frozen carbon dioxide and methane and such, but still an Earth-sized planet. So a fun place to tromp around. So there is the amazing TRAPPIST-1 system. And I really think the Telosians are out there somewhere. We're just waiting to find the right exoplanet to find them. Of course, they do have a nasty edge to them if you watch the menagerie, but at any rate, somewhere out there, there may well be life, and who knows how intelligent it is. We're still looking for intelligent life here, but I think there may be some out there somewhere. So there you are, a few fun exoplanets. All right.
Awesome. I love the illustrations, Michael. That was great, you know.
Oh, thanks. Can you take over my screen and get rid of this?
I sure can.
Oh, good.
There we go.
I've lost.
There we go.
Thank you. I lost my little mouse.
Right. So, Michael, of course, you're a working artist. Do you produce new work all the time, or do you go through?
I do. I'm doing a lot of writing these days too. I'm working on a new book for Springer, but I get to illustrate my work sometimes, and that's fun too.
Sure.
I can write stuff that inspires me visually as well, and then hit it from both angles. So that's kind of fun.
Wonderful, wonderful. I look forward to seeing more. That's great.
All right, thanks.
Okay, all right. So we will take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back with more Global Star Party. Stay tuned.
You're still there, Peter.
I am, David, and so are you.
Yeah.
How many more songs does Peter and David have?
Actually, probably none right now. There are a lot of songs, but for a while I'm going to go back to the readings, and but every now and then we could.
I love the songs. I think it's great.
Yeah, that's a good question. How many we actually have? Because there were only really 3 or 4 that we really enjoyed doing and did often.
Yeah, we've done those two.
And we've done 2 already. Yeah. So. Yeah.
We used to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" in Gregorian chant at star parties. You know, something like "Take me out to the ball game." You know, da 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 da. So then you can add the Gregorian chant, you know, style to almost any song that you might have, and it drives people kind of. It's sort of irritating, which makes it a lot more fun, you know. Especially it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're out at the star party field, and you know. But I'd like to take the words to one of your songs and apply the Gregorian chant tune to it. So
that might be fun to try, Scotty.
That would be.
Peter, I've written to Scotty and I've asked him to add your name to the regular list.
Thank you.
Well, I hope I got your address right. And
yeah, I'd love to have you on as often as you can come on, Peter. That would be great.
Sure.
Michael Carroll says, "Hey Scott, Caroline and I have an art show this weekend, so I got to go pack our cars. Thanks for so much for giving me some time to join, and always a blast." Thank you, Michael. That's great.
And Dr. Bradley has appeared.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, and fresh off of a loss, didn't do so well, but now I get to forget about all of that and worry more about the Global Star Party, which is a lot more fun than losing in baseball.
I'll bet it is.
But is it more fun than winning in baseball?
Yeah, it can be on par with winning in baseball.
Now that's a
It
compliment.
can get close.
That's a compliment.
It's yeah, we didn't hit very well today, and it's cloudy, so I couldn't do any outreach while I was while we were playing. I catch often, and a lot of times I'll talk to the batters and I'll tell them, "You see that star over there? That's Capella." And try and get them worried about the stars, then we can strike him out.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Do you enjoy the movie Field of Dreams?
I've seen that. I would love one of my pictures I want to take is to go to Iowa at night and capture the grandstand or the field of the Field of Dreams with the stars over it. I think it would look awesome.
I think so too. I've been there. And
that is an image I would love to capture. So, but I'll settle for a lake. I'm hoping Friday. The conditions look promising to capture the Cygnus region setting to the west and capture both a river which sits next to Saginaw Bay here in Michigan. And I think there's a beautiful image to be had with the river, the bay, and the Cygnus region setting out over that bay. That's going to be the plan. I have to walk through a quarter mile of a wooded trail, but if I'm successful, out on the other side will be this wide open expanse of a beach, a river that runs alongside the Saginaw Bay. It'll be a beautiful scene. So
I look forward to seeing those results. Are you familiar with the work of Freeman Patterson?
I am not. I will have to look it up.
Okay. Freeman Patterson has an Adrian Bradley heart.
Okay.
And you need to take some of his pictures.
Yeah, I will. I'll see if it looks like he and I are inspired the same way. Different imagers are inspired in different ways when we take our pictures. I do a lot of, I have a success story. I took a night picture of one of the lighthouses that I love to go to. And one of the keepers of the lighthouse saw the picture, instantly handed me $50 and said, "This isn't going in our gift shop. This is going in my house." And I was very flattered that he thought so much of the picture. He just wanted to buy it outright and put it in his house. So I flipped it into a different image of the lighthouse with the Milky Way going by it. And I took a few more. And the nice thing about it is I was able to, he showed me how to turn off the big lights around the lighthouse. It never turns off the lighthouse itself. We want the boats to still be safe. But he showed me how to do that. And it just made for such a fun experience taking pictures around the lighthouse without the big bright lights present. So it's sleepless nights, but very much worth it to be back out there under the stars.
Oh, yeah. Freeman Patterson was born in 1937, and he still lives and still is working. But he has an Adrian Bradley heart. And I believe.
I think there's a difference when you can look at the night sky like you, David, and know almost every major star and some minor ones, and you know what the sky is going to do and where it's going to go, I think it just helps you to really capture it. You know, there's so much that you can do. And all I'm trying to do is bring the sky down for others to enjoy and show why we love the night sky so much. I try not to do it, you know, because it's a pretty picture, and it can be a pretty picture, but the beauty of the night itself is what calls me to try and capture it. And
so wonderful to hear you say that.
Yeah,
I'd like to encourage you and the others on the show tonight to come to the Arizona Star Party next month.
I would love to come. I want to come. You know why I'm going to miss going to it is because I have one of my buddies, and we're going to end up about 2 hours away from you, David, in Oklahoma. While we're getting rained out, you all will have beautiful skies, and I'll have to tune in to see the presentations. And I'm going to look at my buddy and say, see, we should be over with David over in Arizona.
How about you and your buddy, kind of, as you're driving along, kidnap him and take him to ours instead?
There you go. He'll be upset, and so will our wives, but I'll tell him it's for a good reason. Because the sky will be the same. It'll be the same beautiful sky, and it'll be among friends. So don't worry. When he comes to and he's in Arizona, I'll tell him what's happening. But no, I would love to come to that. In fact, I need to make plans so that, because I would like for all of us to meet in person while we have the time to meet and enjoy the stars together. So that is
able to meet in person.
Yeah, definitely enjoying the night sky. And I'm sure we're all probably going to be getting boosters to take here within the next couple of months. I think that's usually the case. But we'll be ready.
Excuse me, guys. I'm gonna cut out. It's been a long evening so far. It's been great. Thanks for having me, and it was a lot great fun.
Thank you so much.
Meeting you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good to meet you, Peter.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
nice to meet you too, Adrian. We'll talk again.
All right.
We've lost Peter, but we have Adrian.
Yep. And as customary, I'm going to start my drive because I'm going to be presenting. I'm the anchor. So I'll be watching and listening in.
The sun, the source of energy for life on Earth. Stored in fossil fuels, the sun's energy has powered modern civilization for over 200 years. But the use of fossil fuels has resulted in dangerous global warming and a changing climate, to the extent that the United Nations and the European Union have declared a climate emergency. Transitioning to clean energy is an urgent imperative, and Europe is committed to achieving net zero emissions by the year 2050. But this will be extremely difficult if we rely only on existing renewable and low-carbon energy solutions, as intermittency of supply, pressures on land use, scalability and toxic waste limit how quickly and effectively existing energy sources can be rolled out. The European Space Agency has been investigating a new solution that could overcome all these problems. Solar power delivered wirelessly from space to Earth. Europe has the technology lead in building and launching communication satellites. This deep know-how can be built upon to develop and scale up solar power satellites. Huge orbiting solar farms, built up of many similar parts that will be mass-produced, launched into space on low-cost, reusable launchers, and assembled together in orbit using advanced robotic techniques. Once completed, these satellites will collect the full power of the sun's energy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and beam it wirelessly down to Earth to receiver stations, which will turn it back into electricity and deliver it to the grid. Space-based solar power is thus a continuously available, inexhaustible, sustainable and scalable source of energy that could help Europe meet its climate and energy security goals. This is not science fiction. The fundamental technologies are understood and are already being demonstrated on Earth and in space today. However, there are still many engineering and policy challenges that would need to be overcome to make this ultimate energy source a reality as early as the next decade. Other nations are already working on realizing space-based solar power. If Europe also wants to benefit from this game-changing capability, accelerated investments in research and development would need to start now to determine if space-based solar power can indeed offer another source of affordable and abundant energy for our green future. And in doing so, launch a new European space energy industry that would provide enormous opportunities for innovation and economic growth in space and on Earth.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Scott Roberts, back from our little break here. It was a very interesting video there, and but it does show how innovative and ingenious the human species can be when it's really challenged to take on, the really tough stuff to answer, the needs of a growing population and to create a bright future for everyone. So coming up next for us, we're doing a little schedule change. We have Connell Richards, who's giving a presentation. I have his presentation is about dark desert skies.
That's right.
He doesn't love dark desert skies. I do.
I think many of us do.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Connell.
Of course. Thank you for having me on. It's been some time. The last I saw some of the GSP crew would have been around Alcon, which I was happy to attend back at the end of July, a couple weeks back.
Yeah,
Certainly had a great
nice
time
to meet
there.
you in person, So.
What's that?
I said it was nice to meet you in person.
Oh, a pleasure. It was great meeting you as well. I met Scott, many of the league officers, John Briggs, many of the GSP speakers that we have seen over the past couple of years. And it was truly a pleasure to see everybody in person and get caught up. And during that trip, I had the opportunity to do a little bit of astrophotography out at the Albuquerque Astronomical Society's dark sky site. And I have some pictures for you tonight coming from that, one of which is my background right now, a picture of the Milky Way over one of their observatories. Now, before I begin, how is my audio and picture? Is that all okay?
It's all good. It's
wonderful.
Good. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay. I'll share screen here and bring up my presentation. Is that presenting okay?
Very perfect.
Wonderful. On the title slide here is a picture I just took with my phone out the back of the van on the way to the Albuquerque Astronomical Society's site. It's called General Nathan Twining Observatory. That's their main club dark sky site, somewhere in the realm of Bortle 1 or 2. I think if you look at the sky quality there, it's 21.7.8, something like that. It's pristine almost, with the kind of skies they have out there because of not only the lack of light pollution, but also the wonderful elevation they have there, about 5,000 feet. And they're quite far out as well. And as you can see here in the area, there really isn't much around in the way of obstructions or things to block targets, which made for a great night of observing. Now, I was there for 2 nights, the first of which was wonderfully clear. It had been raining quite a lot that day because of the monsoon, but that kind of settled down in the evening, and we found ourselves right in the middle of a nice patch of sky that had opened up for us. And unfortunately, the second night was clouded out, but of course we had a great time. I got to see some of the facilities in a little more detail, talk to some of the club members, get to meet some other folks and learn about their experiences. So no matter what, it was definitely a worthwhile trip. Now, I want to advance this here. As you go in, they have a nice little painted sign there, telescopes only beyond this point. I thought that was a fun little aspect of the trip, you know, the kind of thing you stick in a scrapbook or something like that. But it kind of set the tone for the night. Now, this was taken on Thursday night of the week of Alcon. You can see it's a little bit cloudy that day. The day before, it looked about the same, and right around 9 or 10 o'clock, as we started heading into astronomical twilight, it cleared right up. And according to the club members, the seeing was a little rougher than it usually was, but I found it quite okay compared to the East Coast and the skies I've seen there. It was certainly a beautiful night for sure. But to talk a little bit about some of the things they have there, some of the club members had brought out their telescopes. Some of the telescopes just belonged to the club. They had some big Dobbs there, 12, 16-inch. I think there was even a 20-inch there. And inside, you see there's this nice domed observatory where they have a 15-inch Cave Newtonian that they put in this dome. And they said it was quite the effort to put this observatory together. But the observatory dome itself, I was told, was actually a grain silo from a friend of theirs out in Kansas. How they got it down to Albuquerque and down there is an interesting story, I'm sure. I'm not sure that they moved it in one piece, but that's quite an undertaking for a home for such a large telescope. But I did have the opportunity to look through this for most of the night. On Wednesday night, they had it trained on M11, the Wild Duck cluster. And I looked in there, they had a 100-degree eyepiece, a 90-degree eyepiece, something like that, where it gives you that kind of spacewalking experience. So that was really fun to look into and let the telescope do all the tracking and reveal this beautiful open cluster in perfect resolution. Now I got a picture at night as well, as you can see, the nice red lights in there. You can see the ladder going up to the eyepiece, the focuser and the controls and everything like that. Now, because it was significantly brighter in the dome compared to the light of the stars, at least that's how the camera saw it, I wasn't able to get as many stars in the background through the dome slit, but I thought it was really cool to get a picture at night of the telescope looking out through that slit. It would have been at the Wild Duck cluster at that time. Here's what the observing field looked like. You can see over to the left, they had one of their imaging domes. Imaging is a little out of my experience, but it certainly seemed like the folks over there were having some fun. They had a really nice setup over there, and I'd seen some of the astrophotography they'd pulled out of their gear, and it was absolutely tremendous. You can see there are a couple of Dobsonians, some large binoculars set up. Until then, the largest telescope I'd looked through was, I think, a 10-inch, and it was the first time I saw Jupiter. I had to be 6 or 7 at the time, and I barely remember it. But this was my first time looking at a truly big telescope at a deep sky object. I got to see Messier 51 in a 16-inch Dobsonian, and the spiral arms were absolutely stunning. It was the most detail I've ever seen in that galaxy by far, and I certainly hope to recreate that experience again. But over the observing field, you can see what the sky looked like. I'm looking east in this image. So just over the top of the frame and out of view, you would have Cygnus and the Milky Way and all those summer constellations. And down here, it looks like we have a couple of satellites hanging around. And you'll see this in the other images. There is this cloud bank that was kind of surrounding us, maybe up to 5, 6, 7 degrees. And it stayed there pretty solid for the few hours that we were out there observing. But straight above our heads, we had a tremendous starry sky, and it was the darkest I'd ever seen by far. Truly an unforgettable experience. Here we go over to the Milky Way looking south. You see there's a little bit of light here that's coming off of Socorro, which is the next major city to the south of Albuquerque. We were kind of in the middle between the two, just off of I-25. And I know we all recognize this, the southern Milky Way stretching up in Sagittarius. Now where I live at 41 degrees latitude, of course, this is a little bit lower. I think I had about maybe a little bit of a 5 or 6 degree advantage by being down just past Albuquerque. So this was a little higher in the sky, a little better placed for imaging. And of course, it was much darker. So I was able to get this beautiful shot of the Milky Way, the teapot of Sagittarius there, the scorpion dangling down just above the sky. And then you can see M6 and M7, the Lagoon Nebula up here, Sagittarius star cloud, a lot of the wonderful deep sky objects that we tend to cruise with binoculars and small telescopes in Sagittarius and Scorpius. They were all visible in that image, and I was really satisfied with how that turned out. And then later on, at a later point in the conference, you can see there's this little band of stars down here. That's Corona Australis, and I'd never seen that constellation before. So it was interesting to escape where I so normally observe at the 41 degrees and get a little farther south and get a little bit better sample of what the southern sky has to offer down here, as well as a better view of some of these targets, which are normally low in the trees or low above houses and kind of hard to see where I live. The next image here, this is kind of looking west, southwest. You can see Socorro is down here. That would be off to the left. And I didn't see this until I loaded the images onto my computer, and I was quite surprised with what I found. Down here is actually a thunderstorm. With the monsoon season and the flat layout of the way western New Mexico is, you can see for maybe 20 or 30 miles. And there were some thunderstorms to the south, and that's actually lightning in the clouds there, kind of backlighting this little cloud bank just above the mountain. And that was a really incredible experience. I've been trying a couple times throughout the night to get that on camera by centering it. It wasn't seeming to work out so well, so I thought I'd just get some images of the stars, and I thought I'd get this with the mountain in the foreground, that little silhouette there. But I was fortunate enough to get that thunderstorm over there, which was really a nice addition to that image, some icing on the cake. And then we go back to this dome where they had the 15-inch Newtonian of a good chunk of the Milky Way right over that. And this is probably one of my favorite images. You can see it's behind me now in my Zoom background. This should be looking through Cygnus right here. Here we have Deneb. Here we have Aquila the Eagle, coat hanger hanging out up here, and then just a couple of clouds as well. But you can tell it was pretty transparent. And for something that was not much more complicated than a point and shoot with my camera, I have to say the sky did all the work. It was really a tremendous location. Here we have another shot. I thought I'd be a little more artistic instead of looking for something specific. But here we have the Big Dipper just over
That's a beautiful shot.
Oh, thank you. I have that just over the dome of the observatory. It kind of looks like it's, Pac-Man eating something up with the Dipper just kind of hanging down in that slit. But there's the Dipper extending up, Ursa Major kind of falling behind the dome there, kind of silhouetted. Little bit of light pollution in these clouds, but it does have some artistic effect there. It didn't have much of an effect on our seeing or our transparency, or kind of washing out some of the deep sky targets. We did have some really good seeing, at least in my opinion, compared to much wetter and more turbulent eastern skies of places like Pennsylvania and Virginia, West Virginia, all up and down the East Coast. But anyway, here we have the Big Dipper. And at this point, I was wondering, I have a DSLR and a tripod. I've never used the really high ISO settings before. They never had a lot of use to me for these kind of wide field nightscapes. But we all know Messier 51, the Whirlpool Galaxy, is right there. And I wanted to see what would happen, if I could just try and get that. It's not on this slide, but the next slide. Here we have M51, and you can tell it's a pretty grainy image. I've enlarged it and blown it up and enhanced the contrast as best I could. Certainly not the best image of the galaxy, but I thought it was a fun experiment to point the camera where that was and see these little pixels of M51 and its companion galaxy in the Dipper. I didn't think I'd be able to do that, but I set myself a new photographic record at 23 million light years for the farthest thing I've ever photographed. And regardless of the quality of the image, I thought it was a fun exercise just to test out my equipment and see what I could do. But I want to go back to this slide. This was one of the star trails I did. And when I was looking at this in Photoshop later on, it was a little bit blurry because of the Milky Way. That's been blurred over just like the stars. And normally, if I were to take this in a more light polluted sky, you'd just see the stars streaked over as normal. But you see the clouds were moving, the Milky Way was moving. All the colors were brought out over this exposure. And when I enhance the contrast, I get this kind of pastel effect. So it wasn't as, I guess you could say, scientific as the other images, but I wanted to be a little more artistic with this one and blend everything into what almost looks like some art. So you have Socorro down here in the clouds and the thunderstorms, the Milky Way stretching out over that. You can kind of make out the teapot of Sagittarius and some of the different clouds. There would be Antares right there, and then an airplane that took off south of us and was flying up towards Albuquerque, all captured in this image, which I thought looked really cool. Just a nice combination of science and art. And a lot of us talk about ways we can combine that. And I think I found one image like this one that did that particularly well. I was pretty happy with how that turned out. So with all that said, the astrophotography was great. The skies were great, but certainly the people were the highlight of me attending Alicon. I was thrilled to meet so many faces, friends I'd seen online, meet them in person. And it was a pleasure to meet some new folks as well. But this is a picture that I think would look familiar to many of the GSP audience. John Briggs has been on many times before talking about his Astronomical Lyceum, and I had the opportunity to visit that on the last day of the conference. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it's a collection of historic telescopes and memorabilia, books, magazines, spectrometer, all these different things that John has collected as a member of the Magdalena Astronomical Society and a classic telescope organization as well. I could never deliver the Astronomical Lyceum the justice it deserves. John certainly did a great talk when he was telling us about all the things he'd collected and preserved over the years. But that was a highlight of the trip. And like I said, no man could do that better than John himself. But he's talked about it many times on this program before. And should you find yourself out in Magdalena in Western New Mexico, this place would be worth a visit. And I've included a couple of shots of the Very Large Array as well. This was along with that tour, looking down the double railroad tracks where they have crawlers, a little bit like they have at something like Kennedy Space Center, where they mount these giant rockets, or in this case, radio telescopes, onto this crawler, and they move it over railroad tracks to different locations. So essentially how the VLA works, they have a triangle of telescopes. So you have 13-mile stretches of rail, all separated by 120 degrees, pointing in different directions, and they're able to move the telescopes out along these rails. There are 4 different configurations that change the resolution of what the VLA can do, and in this case, it was in the D configuration, which means it's closest. All the telescopes were kind of nestled in the center. And a little fun fact for those of you who have seen the film adaptation of Carl Sagan's Contact, this is the orientation that the telescopes were in when that movie was shot.
Oh, that's cool.
Mostly because they were so photogenic, but it was kind of cool to see them all together and get some other pictures like these, where you can see them clustered with storms in the background. As you go into the VLA, it's this vast plain kind of surrounded by mountains. It's almost like a crater or a bowl shape. And that's intentional because they picked this location. A lot of the radio noise from our cell phones and our cars and all these different things is blocked out by those mountains. And that allows them to get much better observations. So as someone who hadn't had much experience with radio or radio astronomy, it was really interesting to learn how they had done things and watch them do their observing in the daytime, just move the telescopes around and point this array around and do some interesting research. Here I got a little bit closer. You can see all the dishes pointed in the same direction. And then we have another dish. They have 28 dishes in total, 27 of which are divided among the 3 rails. This one is in what's called the bird bath position. So essentially they point it up, directly up, and that keeps kind of out of the wind as shelters as best they can do. And you'll actually see this when they get more wind than they usually do. So when the wind gets up, I think it's over 30 or 35 miles an hour, all the telescopes go into this position. Now, radio telescopes like these can observe in almost any conditions, but the wind is a major threat because it can start to cause forces and start to distort things and possibly damage the telescopes as fragile as they are. So they put them up in this position to keep them safe. And this was one that was kind of set to the side for service. And that was really interesting to see. Now I moved on to one final array. I have just a couple more images. This is the VLBA, which is the Very Long Baseline Array. And this is a series of 10 telescopes that extends from Hawaii all the way to the Virgin Islands. And there's one as far north as I think it's New Hampshire or Vermont. Yeah, you can see the sun setting down there. All right, the dish is right in the background.
To everyone.
I think you're breaking up. Is my audio okay?
Hold on for a second. Let me.
Yeah, we're hearing some extra.
Yeah, Daniel, I think that you've just logged on. Can you mute yourself?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Is everything good so far? The audio and visual and all that?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's great, Connor. It's great.
So here we've got the Very Long Baseline Array. And like I was saying, it's this huge array of telescopes. And similar to the VLA, they tend to point them in the same direction and get kind of a 5,000 mile long array of telescopes that they're able to image things and study things with, all these different astronomical objects that are very bright in radio sources. And this was just outside of Pi Town, which we were going to see a 40-inch Dobsonian, which one of the Magdalena Astronomical Society members had built. That was James Todoritis. And oops, here we go. Let me advance. I have another shot of the VLBA dish there, the one in Pi Town. And finally, a couple pictures of the 40-inch that we were brought out to see out in Magdalena. You can see there are 3 different images here of the telescope in different positions. It was a little bit cloudy that night, but fortunately I was able to see the ring nebula through it, even though the skies were kind of partly cloudy. I'd never seen it that bright before in a telescope. I mean, a 40-inch is truly a monster. You can see the people standing next to it for scale. And I'd never seen that kind of definition and outstanding brightness from the nebula. Unfortunately, I couldn't see much detail because of how cloudy it was. And soon after I stepped up the ladder, it went black. But Western New Mexico and even Albuquerque itself, as urban as it is, was a great location to meet many other astronomers and get to know some of the Alcon officers and GSP members and get to know a lot of amateur astronomers that we have seen online for so long. I know many of you have met in person, but it was my first chance to get down there and see some new people. So it was certainly a joy, and I hope you enjoyed the astrophotography and some pictures from the great radio telescopes of the West, VLBA, VLA, and even this giant optical telescope, the one out in Magdalena that was a 40-inch. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's great. I'm curious, Connell, was this like some of the darkest skies you've ever visited?
They certainly were. I'd been out to darker places before, Cherry Springs, which has Black Forest Star Party. I've been out to Cherry Springs before, and those were pretty dark skies. I enjoyed that quite a lot. Tass's site, south of Albuquerque, about an hour and a half, that was very good. But the elevation, the dryness, even the remoteness of Western New Mexico, I've never been that far from civilization. You're really getting out there, like I had with that picture of the dirt road. That beat Cherry Springs just by a little bit because of how many factors work in those locations' favor. I mean, Cherry Springs is a great place, has some good elevation, some good darkness for Pennsylvania and the East Coast. But when you get out west and you're 8,000 feet up and it's 30% humidity and there are no lights for dozens of miles, that all works to your
great
advantage.
Transparency, all of that. Yep, that's right.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, your photographs were awesome, very inspiring, and makes me want to go back out there. And
wonderful. Thank you very much.
Check that out for sure. Okay, Connell, thanks again. Up next is Nicholas Arias, and otherwise known as Nico the Hammer. And Nico, you want to come on?
Hi, Scott. How are you? How are you guys? Well, I hope you are having a great night, a great CSP, and tonight, last week I was talking and showing how I capture Saturn from my home with the Dobsonian, as
Yes.
always, and these few days I was working with Jupiter. We are months ago, maybe to the opposition, but I wake up really in the middle of the night, maybe at 3 a.m., and take a shot of Jupiter because we was having a good seeing nights this last week that is not normal in this time in the year. And let me show you the results. Okay, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, as always, I will start showing you how I did the capture. This is one of the videos. You can see, well, this is my hand tracking shagging, and you can see that the scene was stable and maybe a little blur or a little movement, but it was a really clear night. And as you know, I used to make 4 captures for each image because I have the monochromatic camera. And in this time, Jupiter was with the red spot on the front, and we have Io.
Seeing looks really good.
We have Io transiting, or just about transiting the planet, and here at the left, this other moon is Ganymede. And I was waiting a good seeing night because I was to try to capture some details on Ganymede. So let me show you the result of this video. Let me see here. And here you have the 4 channels stacked: the red channel, the green, the blue, and the light, the luminance channel. And this is what I get when I sharpen with wavelets in Registax.
Wow.
Just was stunning. When I saw the stacked images, I said, okay, this was a really good night. And I was lucky that we have no clouds, no humidity, so I take 4 entire sets of videos. So I get different positions of the transit of Io and the red spot. And this was the results when I stack and rotate in WinShupos all the channels. This was the first capture of the night. You can see even not details, but some shape of Io. It's like
Wow.
a little ball there, and I also chased these 2 white storms that are forming below the red spot, and for the last month the red spot it seems to be moving down. We are talking with other astrophotographers that capture and make planetary imaging, that it seems that the red spot is moving a little down, or maybe the contour is moving up. We need to wait to see what happened there. And this was the second set. You can see Io a little closer. And this was the third set. And you can see here Io in front of Jupiter.
Oh, yeah.
It was near going near the red spot. I love the transits when Jupiter has the red spot in the front. It's really beautiful to observe. You are watching with your eyepiece, and you see 5 minutes later, and you can clearly see how it moves. Now, you don't see the movement, but if you wait some minutes, you can see the change of the moons and the rotation of Jupiter is amazing. And this was the last one that I took. You can see there again, Io. And I make two sets with less magnification, no magnification, with less ROI. You see when you capture, you can set the camera to focus on a small area of the sensor, or you can bring the resolution a little bigger. And I made two sets with the two moons. You can see Ganymede here. I really love this kind of picture with the moons and the transits and everything.
Oh, it's spectacular.
And here again with Io in front of Jupiter and Ganymede. And I was really, really happy when I see this. A little details or in the shapes of Ganymede. And this was the great detail image I get. I always try to get some detail or colors on the moon of Jupiter, and this when I see Ganymede, I was really shocked. You can see it here a little closer, and it was not only real funny to be there and enjoying the observation and the capture. It's really great to get these images and to show this is the real moon on far planets, and it's really shocking when you think about the distance. We always talk about the distance in astronomical distance, but we think that the solar system is, well, this is closer. No, it was 600 million kilometers to this
it's
little
still
moon.
very far away. Yes,
It's still far away, and Ganymede is even bigger than the moon. So you can see it's really far. But it's really good to show that even with an amateur telescope and with no tracking and no equatorial mount or everything, you can even get this kind of details. It's really good.
Yes,
it's really nice.
Nico, just to remind me, what size Dobsonian are you using?
It's a 10-inch Dobsonian.
10-inch.
A 10-inch f5.
And which camera are you using with this?
I am using the QHY5, the monochromatic. Let me stop sharing. I am using here.
Oh, this camera. Okay.
It's a guiding camera.
Yeah.
Monochromatic camera, but it works really fine.
Absolutely. And the software you like to use, is it?
Yes, I was using for a long time ShareCap software, and for the last month or maybe 2 months, I started capturing with Fire Capture, because talking with some guy to talk with other guys, we found that this especially camera gets more frames per second with some configuration that you can do to the Fire Capture that in ShareCap I was limited in that way. So I am using ShareCap when I try to get some deep sky imaging with the same camera. But for planetary imaging, I am using the Fire Capture. And then the processing, I use the all free software. I use PIP to center the planet in every frame. I use AutoStacker to select the best percentage of the frames to stack in one image. ShareCap for the sharpening the details, and Photoshop just to make a few adjustments of colors or fix the background. Sometimes the blue channel brings your background very blue, and just for details.
I see. That's fantastic stuff. You always present work that is so beautiful and and so detailed. And, I often talk about you to my astronomy friends because many people think that you have to have some of the world's most expensive equipment to produce images like what you do. And I think you have to have a good telescope, good mirror. It needs to be collimated, a good camera, but you need great skill, and that's what you have. And so thank you for making that presentation.
No, thank you, Scott. And I love to share this kind of thing, that what you can do with the scope and the camera that you have. You can do a lot of things, and you keep learning, keep trying different capturing methods, different processing, and you always keep making a new step. So it's really nice to share this with you and with the audience. And as always, if anyone has a question, you can write me or call me anytime.
Great. Thank you,
Nico.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. Up next is we're going to stay down in Argentina, and we are bringing on Cesar Brolo. Cesar's been working on restoring the observatory project he's been talking about for the last few months, but they were finally, I think, able to get him to do some more work, which is great. I'm really glad that someone like you, Cesar, is out there doing that because preserving our astronomy site heritage is also very important.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much. It's very great that you show you make the possibility to show us our works, that we return to the works again. We have now a project where we considering put in new conditions 3 telescopes, the old size refractor 10 inches, the Gustav Hayden refractor of 7 inches, and we receive a donation, an historic telescope that from an amateur astronomer in San Miguel. Their daughters contact us 1 year ago, and then donate us to the association, and we are thinking in install this 30 centimeters near to 14 inches telescope, of course, in the facilities of the San Miguel Observatory. And if we have these 3 telescopes working, and maybe 1 year, we feel winners, because we have had a huge work. Let me I can show you some pictures, some presentation. Screen. Let me know if you are watching the presentation now.
It's coming up. Yep,
yes, now. Yeah.
Yes. We saw the whole
yes.
presentation.
Yes, of course. Yes. I know that you send us the best way to show slides in our Zoom, because it's a great help in the, yes, I saw the video, but sometimes all people like me are more difficult to learn test things.
Oh no!
But we
all
told
good.
that from a lot of global star party, we called, especially to the new ones, when the people are little afraid to show something or to share the screen, say, no worry, we call it that. They say, you are in the global star party. Yes. If you have troubles to share the screen, you're a member of global star party.
That's right. That's how you get in.
Right. That's
you
right.
have to make those errors.
Absolutely.
It's a requirement.
Yes, absolutely. And we started again. I tell you because we advanced more in the things about the situations where the local government of San Miguel have more tools to take position of the facilities, and we start to work. Now we can start to work, especially painting the domes, the first thing. And I can show you in this presentation something that I have. The first thing is where are I took this picture of maybe I don't remember when, but we have a small eclipse, solar eclipse. Maybe Nicolas, do you remember? Was in the summer, but I don't remember when.
In December.
In December. Thank you. Yes, a small part of a sun, but I couldn't take a picture because you can see that we had a beautiful sunset without with cloudly. We can't took the picture of the sun with a little part of the moon, but I can show you thing. You can see my cursor here. Is the size in this. First of all, that I can explain to the people is that here is the celostato here, and here, well, in this part is where actually is the size of 10 inches refractor telescope. Refractor is a big one. Really, it's a treasure. It's a treasure because it's 254 millimeters objective.
Yeah.
Work like an ED. It's a doublet, but they use a very low dispersion glass, and it's very interesting because it's no more than an f10. It's very short for because maybe you know Scott, that in the end of the 19th century or the first time of the 20th century, you have more 15 like f razor focal razor number in construction size or early Gustav Haydn, that Haydn was biased by size, and this size telescope have a focal razor of focal ratio of I don't remember, maybe it's A. It's very short for the time. Maybe it's a telescope from 1920s, maybe. We are as we are watching and we are start to cleaning the objective, and we have some signs of an information in the cell of the glasses. Looking forward, I can give you this information exactly of the focal length. Of course, that we disassemble the part and we keep in a box like a real treasure. Well, here we are starting this is the Pierre and the equatorial mount of the Gustav Huygens. Gustav Huygens, we have two telescopes together, one of 7 inches and another one of 5 inches. Work really good and in good conditions. The clock work very, very well, and we are thinking, without remove the clock, we are thinking in put 2 step motors in right ascension and declination. Here do you have the motor? Yes. Tell me.
The motors, is that a weight-driven mount?
The motors are stepper motors with the high high torque. Yes, high torque NEMA motors.
Sure.
Is the first one where we are talking about to put a PMCA system to drive. The problem is that in the declination, we don't have that as is typical in these telescopes. We don't have wheel and worm, because they use the system of something like a pivot with a yes. But we can. Our idea maybe is not make a go-to telescope, if not a driver for. We are thinking maybe in some type of things about some encoder, or we are thinking how resolve this. Maybe we can put in this area for in declination, we can put here where we have a wheel, we can add worm and a crown. Well, we don't know, but our first idea is put a system where you can choose between the old clock, and a stepper motor with high torque, of course, but very precise for the maybe we can guide, or we are thinking on how prepare this. Well, something that was very important to make the first step was make a safe door. It is not astronomy. It's something where you need put the same step, the first step, and here is the director Santiago Mayese working to and he's here do you have I'm from the from the government to support us to work, and here we have, first of all, from 1 year ago, we have a metal door, safe door, because we have problems where some vandalism, and now we have, yes, something that is very important. We have doors, strong doors, and alarms. This is very important. Here you have a view of the dome, and the smaller telescope, the secondary telescope. That this telescope is of the telescope of 5 inches, and was to use to put photographic plates. Here is the people enjoying, and here you can see the secondary and the main telescope. Here you can see in more details the mount. If we can put how do you say? If we can put wheel and worm system here, we are winners. We feel really very happy. I think that I saw that really we can do it this. Well, I go to change to share another part of the screen. Let me not now. Wait a minute. Sorry.
No problem. Well, Cesar, we asked everyone else in the program what really blows their mind about astronomy, exploring the universe. What is it for you? What is so amazing to you?
For me is now is the idea of how the gravity can distort it and change the
gravitational lensing.
The gravitation, yes, where do you have nothing and nothing is pulled by the gravitation like a jelly, like something that don't have sense. Really, if I start to think in my idea of how gravity, because you can say, oh, the space-time or something, and say, and for me the idea is fantastic, because it's, for me, something about new beginning is new to understand where you don't have nothing to pull, because how many molecules of hydrogen or do you have in the emptiness? And this emptiness is totally crazy how it's pulled and changes shape, where the light, because for me the light is still going in right way, but sometimes it's like you need to feel like a train.
Yeah,
the train thing that is going ahead in a line, and but the train the train don't have a will to change the direction, but you have the idea where all lines are totally going to different places to go, are pulled and change the shape by a totally how do you say, totally invisible forces. Is amazing for me. Yes, and yeah, gravitational lenses are something that a cosmologic friend that I have told me, for example, something that's so crazy, like in a part of a picture of the gravitational lenses of James Webb, you have the same galaxy, it totally how do you say, totally
distorted,
and you have a part and another part, and they make interferometry between one part and another part, and they have different measurements of distance, because where do you have the path of the light longer, you need the light needed more time. It's totally amazing. It's totally over I mean, in the great way. Wow. I can share you a little more, but in another. And this is the telescope that we. This is another guy of the group, Nicolas Balbi. Nicolas is an archaeologist, and he went to Bariloche, 1,600 kilometers in his Land Rover ship, to carry the telescope. And this is the telescope that we receive as to use, of course. That something funny was that Nicolas told me, "Oh, Cesar, it's a great piece for the museum." No, it's not for the museum. We can use totally the thinking between archaeologists and opticians. So say, no, we can use completely. We can put in a mint condition and use totally in a great way to use. Let me show you more. Okay. Well, here you have the pieces, and we are finding. We need to make another part of this, because we have all the declination modulo, and we need the another one that is for right ascension.
You can make a really big Dobsonian, you know, Cesar?
Yes, but
Yeah,
yes, I know. But as we have an empty dome, we have another mirror for Dobsonian. But
Okay.
this one we think that we need respect the original design, and
Yeah, sure.
yes, and really we need to make this like a totally functional telescope.
Yes,
Here,
the corresponding restoration.
Yes, absolutely, because it's a great telescope to use for astrophotography, for measure, and 30 centimeters is a great telescope to put in works. Here this is the finder. This is beautiful because the owner was a beautiful man, the beautiful kind of people, and something wonderful was that the daughters really think in donate this telescope, and we can make a great work. And of course, here we have the opportunity. Well, we need to make another pair of this, because something that you can see is that Nicolas is archaeologist. He used the archaeological rules that using for digging and excavations, and it's very interesting because it's a great way to show the size of the things. This is the mine soil. It's from the 1945, 1950, I think, this telescope. The owner made all the complete telescope.
Wow. The optics and everything?
Yes. He made the optics. And
wow.
I here you have a picture of the original setting.
Oh, yeah.
And we need to put in this condition the telescope.
Yeah.
Or better, because we are going to make a go-to telescope.
Yeah, it'll be better, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. We are thinking in make the three telescope at the same time, because it's cheaper and we can put all in the same way. For example, send to the painter, to the painters, or all together the tubes and disassembly the things, the all mechanics things that we need in the three telescope. It's much better make all this for the three telescope. Here is Santiago Mayese. With Santiago, last year we disassembled the cell of the size telescope because this telescope was vandalized. Here we have worm and a wheel, and here we are going to put the two-stepper motors, and it's more easy to make a go-to telescope.
Sure.
And here the problem is that we need again the system, the back focus completed system. I think that I saw maybe in our friends of historical observatories that maybe it's possible to recover some pieces that maybe they have, or somebody told me that maybe it's possible to get another similar part, and we can adapt, especially if it's a size part, you know, or all about schedules. Schedules is draw, sketch, plans about about size or design is welcome, because we need to make a new back focus system. And we don't have money to of course, no. Well, maybe yes, I can afford and I can help, but we need more help to have to make a very strong and because it's a 20 it's a 10 inches telescope. You know, you can see that
if this is for public outreach, maybe you can put together a web page where people can make donations.
Yes,
and we will help to
absolutely
that, so, sure.
Yes, we are awaiting the permission of the government to have the condition, the Bella Vista al Cosmos, that is the how do you say, the association that to have the legal condition to receive
to receive
donations. Yes, absolutely. When I have that, I'll advise you, and we prepare completely the things, because all about materials, and of course that I am importer in Argentina, I am thinking how import without problem with receive the some materials without as donation. The problem sometimes is that custom here is a hell, and it's terrible. And you say you receive donations,
in a lot of countries,
and you need to pay by donation, but prices every time. I remember a customer that received the donation, the price of the eyepiece from Explore Scientific. He needed to pay a lot. It was incredible. Of course that he loved the eyepiece, and he had the eyepiece more than I need to pay taxes like as a new eyepiece. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. Yes, and this is very important to think how work. Well, you know, it's a great. This is this incredible cell of size. Telescope. It's amazing. Very heavy. Yes, I love that.
Made to last. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yes. Hi, Adrian. How are you?
I'm now switched to my home setup, so ready to go, and making sure everything's working, and everything is. So, yep.
Here you can see that the two. Yes, here you can see 254 millimeters. It's incredible size objective. It's a piece of art.
Yeah,
here you can see beautiful. The number. It's beautiful, beautiful. Yes, I need to. Yes, I prepare a new presentation next week with the pictures that I took in my laboratory of the glasses cleaning, you know, because we are starting. I'm here, totally amazed with this. Look the size of this.
Yeah, it's big.
It's me. Yeah, look that. We with Santiago Mayese, we was working completely from the noon to the afternoon and near to the night. 6 hours to remove, making a little nose to remove each screw very handily, you know.
Sure.
Was a craziness. We remove how do you say, not the beast, another one. I remember, I forget the name in English. The hornet nest.
Oh, hornet
remove
nest.
the hornet
Oh,
nest.
wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I remember the old one, fortunately, without the nest.
Yeah, without any living hornets.
Yeah, yes, but we remove a lot of
Yes,
gas.
it's new, so I don't know if it.
Okay.
Really, we love this.
Let's see.
Well, this is my presentation.
Okay.
All right.
For tonight, and here something that was really fun.
Okay.
Really, we say we don't we can't
right now.
expect to make focus. Here is Santiago Mayese showing the telescope with the sun and making focus of the sun.
The fellow who's on right now is Cesar Brolo, who is a very well-known astronomer from South America.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he.
Well, this is
Yep,
my
we can hear you.
presentation.
Yep, we can hear you just fine
Thank
over
you.
there.
Thank you very much to have
You
a
like-
space.
you like me?
Thank you very much.
Richard. A great work.
Okay. All right. So we are going to, from Argentina back up here to Arkansas. We are going, I think maybe to Dr. Daniel Barr's property out there.
Yes. Hello.
Right?
So looking forward to
things
this
Scott,
one.
how are you?
Good. You got good video.
Okay. Good video, and we are out here in the dark with. I'm hoping you can see this with.
See the edge of it. I think it's a pair of big binoculars, right?
Yeah, that's my pair of very large binoculars. Those are 5-inch aperture, and I'm trying to adjust the light here so they're visible.
Yeah.
But
Yep, we can see them.
We're out here with my students. Folks, you want to say hi to everybody in the astronomy community around the world? I'm
They're
out
so
here on my
enthusiastic.
ranch.
Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
okay.
Can't we
This is
say
my
hello a
first
little bit more?
Hi guys from Argentina.
So we're out here and we're doing our very first live astronomy lab here at lovely Barthland Ranch and Observatory. And I have a hilltop home up on what's known as Round Mountain. And we have about 6 acres in the backyard, and we're screened by hills and trees from the lights of nearby cities. So we've got the Milky Way as a naked eye object, and we're just starting to pick out Scorpio and other things and do some constellation sketching. But the theme of the Star Party, the Global Star Party, is beginnings. And I found a beginning in the news that I was just so excited by. This is something we've been waiting 50 years for or more. And many of you go out with your telescopes and you take a look at Jupiter and its moons or Saturn and its moons. And people have speculated for many, many years that Jupiter's moons were co-formed with the giant planet, and the same thing with Saturn's major moons. How could Jupiter capture satellites as large as Ganymede, Europa, Io, etc.? And really very, very difficult for a planet like that to capture satellites so big. People figured out for many years, the speculation, the theory, was that there must have been a circumplanetary disk, a disk of dusty material orbiting the equator of Jupiter, from which these moons would have condensed in exactly the same way as the planets themselves condensed from circumstellar disks of material, protoplanetary disks, as they're often called. And we've been photographing protoplanetary disks for about 25 years. Hubble captured one shortly after it was launched, and people were like, wow, look at this, protoplanetary disks, and there's gaps in the rings, and gee, with gaps in the rings, that must be where the new planets are forming, and Kepler satellite bore that out, etc. Now, the Atacama Large Millimeter Array, the ALMA telescope array down in Chile, they have detected the first circumplanetary disk, which is so very exciting. So this is around a giant Jovian, and there's a disk of material, and there are gaps in the disk, which indicate large moons like Europa, like Ganymede, like Io, forming there right now. And this has been, Scott, we talk about this on my How Do You Know program many times. The history of science is often competing theories, and one doesn't get selected or decided upon until we have the technology to do the experiments, to gather the data that says, yes, this is so.
Yeah.
This has been a beginning that we've been waiting for people have been speculating for more than 50 years, and we've been looking for this heavily for more than 25. And we find that the Hubble wasn't quite enough, and Webb could probably do this, but Hubble wasn't quite there yet. And the Atacama Large Millimeter Array is actually seeing this circumplanetary disk in the microwave range. So this would be within the range of Webb's far infrared cameras, but we'll see, and maybe Webb will image this one day and we'll get to take a look at it in infrared. But that's a beginning we've been waiting for. It's like waiting for this actor to come on from the wings for such a long time, and it's finally here. So this is very exciting, and folks, I'm going to keep this very short because my students are here tonight, and they are my priority. And I'm so glad.
Thanks for coming on.
I'm on a student's iPhone right now because my phone didn't have the reception to hook in. So I was able to send one of my students a link, and they're very generously letting me use their phone. And I'm not in my office. We're out in the deep dark, and the sky is fully dark now. So we're going to go back and enjoy the constellations and wish everybody a good evening.
Excellent. Tell Madison her contribution to science is greatly achieved, or has been achieved, and we are very grateful.
Well, I will let her know, and thank you all very much, and we'll talk to you soon. I'm going to get rid of this bright light. I'm drawing bugs like crazy. Good night, folks.
Hey, good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Enjoy that night sky out there. No grumbling.
No grumbling.
Good night.
So anyhow, Adrian, I've been asking everyone else. I didn't have a chance to ask Daniel Barth, but he often tells me what kind of blows his mind about astronomy and his own views of the universe. What does it for you?
Well, it's whatever it is, it makes me drive 2.5 hours on back-to-back nights to go and see
Exactly.
it. I was thinking about it on my way in, because I figured you'd ask the question, Scott, and I think the answer is knowing that we belong to something a lot bigger than ourselves. I think that, when I image the night sky against the backdrop of things on Earth or nature like trees and lakes and things, it's my way of showing that we're a part of all of this. This isn't an unknowable background. It's more than a background tapestry. It's more than stars that are distant. Pumbaa has it right. They were giant ball. He thought they were giant balls of plasma, and yet, so is Timon. They were, whatever Timon said they were. I mean, they're everything at once. Until we finally developed the technology to fly close to one, we have to use other forms of science, spectroscopy and things, to know what they are. We study our closest star, and at the same time there are the ancient traditions and the ancient views of stars, what they meant. So to me, it's all about a belonging. And for me, kind of a personal new beginning is that one of the favorite places of mine to do nightscapes, the keepers of the lighthouse basically said, yeah, we would love to have an astronomical event out in our out at our lighthouse park. They apparently are aware of how dark the skies are there too, and I told them if not this year, I would definitely try and arrange something so that we could have a dark sky party there. And it warms my heart because it's one of my favorite places to go. And I will go ahead and share the screen so that I can pictorially share what I mean when I come out here. Let's see. First, I'll share an image here. So this is what it looks like. These bright lights, this is the lighthouse. And you would say, well, there's no way you could do any kind of astronomy outreach here. Well, I was told how to turn those lights off. And they said, come on out, whenever you want to shoot. And so this next image, I turned, the lights are turned out. Look at the difference. With the lights out, look at how much more you're seeing. I didn't intentionally frame this for the lighthouse to be looking at Andromeda. That's just kind of how it turned out. You have the Andromeda galaxy here, and you have this part of the Cassiopeia region where you can barely make out Cassiopeia. And down here is the light of M33 sitting next to this lighthouse. So it's a thrill to be able to come out, to have permission to turn the bright lights off. We can't turn off the lighthouse because it's got a important function. It keeps shipwrecks from happening. But we can still turn off the camp, basically the park lights. There is some other lighting out there, and I can demonstrate that with this image. You can see that the lighthouse is lit by all sorts of other lighting coming from behind me. There's a staying quarters, and let's see if I got those numbers. Yeah, 1857, when the original lighthouse structure was built. So it was there's lighting from a building behind me, and then there's campers. There's a few campers left that are camping out at this park. So the light is still light paints. When it's completely dark, there's a couple of lights that are still on, and the lighthouse glows a little bit red because of a red light that's behind, but that red light's being overpowered right now. But you can still see Andromeda here, the heart and the soul, the double cluster, and other objects here that are part of the winter Milky Way. And over here, the dipper slid in. Now, you're at a sky that's really dark. This is maybe a level darker in pictures than if you were out here and you were trying to find the Little Dipper. It would be difficult. There's your North Star here, but as difficult as it probably would be to find the Little Dipper in this picture, it's just as difficult when you're looking over the lake. And the view looking over the lake has this look. And notice there are clouds and they're dark, which means you're looking out at least a Bortle 3 zone. Eventually I will get a sky quality meter, but the clouds tell the story often. And when the clouds are dark enough, that's telling you that you're in a dark enough zone to where, you're in a dark enough zone where the Milky Way shows up, his naked eye. And it's why I like this place a lot. And so to be able,
nice composition too.
Yeah, this was,
nice.
I did a lot of that with the trees. You got a triangle here.
Yeah,
I
like
purposely, I purposely did some geometric composition here. Sometimes I do use some of the photography techniques. If I want to, if my imagination sees this sort of composition and says, hey, we can put the Milky Way in between them here. Another good example of that, turning up and looking at the Milky Way. Here's another, it's more of a compositional thing, but you've got all of these stars in the sky. You're looking directly up. So you've got the trees surrounding the lighthouse. There's a little bit of a blowout here on the buildings, but it's okay. And if you remember from some other global star parties, I like to look for certain features in this part of the Milky Way to see if I've got them. And like the Barnard Z did just show up. M11, the wild duck, is right here. This little smattering here. And you can see there's a little bit of trailing. There's names for these. These are next to my list to get names for. But M over here with M17 and M16, and back further would be M23 right here. But where I was standing, this is the sort of, so there's some compositional things I like to do at the lighthouse. And here's another one where you've got clouds, some bright lights, but you also have, and I do believe these are just artifacts. I don't think those are actual objects. Sagittarius is here, and that where my hand is M22, barely shows up. So while tracking may not have been the best, a lot of what I did with the compositions here was to, I did a lot of framing.
That's nice. It's nice.
Yeah, you have a really good view of what this camping park looks like. This is for once I didn't look out and over the water a lot when I was there. I do have plans on doing that later, but that's why I like to shoot at the park. And it can be a wonderful thing to have a place where you're welcome to do night photography. And when I turned the lights back on, I found that there was some wildlife photography that I could do there as well. And there are the raccoons looking for food. I believe this is the mate just sort of sitting here waiting for a mate to go out and find them something. But that wasn't the only place. And one more quick looking up at the Cygnus region. The Cygnus region is important to me because it is just as bright as the galactic center, and it is also it's a beautiful part in the sky. And there's the Great Rift starts over Cygnus. In this part, the Great Rift, a huge dust lane, starts here and goes on through towards the center of the
wow, look at
galactic
that composition. Plane. That is totally cool.
Looking up and seeing all those stars.
Yeah, very powerful.
Yeah, and
that's like a giant refractor aiming at
it looks like
sky.
it.
Yeah,
it really does. And if you notice the light beam from the lighthouse,
yeah, you can see the rays coming out.
Yep, cool. Points at something. Some of it, most of that, it was kind of by accident, but I'll accept the how it works. It's basically pointing at Deneb in the Sator region.
Yeah.
As if to highlight it and say, this is,
check this out.
Check this out. And somewhere in here, I don't think right here, if you can barely see, there's a little bit of the veil. It's very faint and it's very faint, and it's but there's a little bit of the veil there. And you just you have to know that it's there, to be able to go, oh yeah, look at that. So
Yeah.
and a lot of it, when the sky's dark enough, you accidentally get things like that in your composition, or if you're shooting in the right place. So that wasn't the only place, though. I went ahead and there's a dark sky lodge and tavern, and I tried to frame it. The barbecue here is very good, and I tried to frame
that. Where is
with
this again?
This is in the thumb of Michigan. This is in Port Crescent.
Okay.
It's there is a dark sky park that is there, that about the same, if similar, if not sometimes a little better darkness. Sometimes the Point O'Bark Lighthouse has better darkness. Sometimes this area of the thumb has better darkness, but it's a nice place. They have a bridge that if you go through here, and if you decide to go through the trails, you come out at the other end. Here you have the Dipper trying to sneak in here.
You need to go back there so that when if the Milky Way would cross right in the middle of that,
Yeah. Cygnus region will cross the middle of that. But the shot that I wanted, I didn't go. Once you come out through this,
that's pretty.
You're here. I captured some sunsets here.
Yeah.
And I would look for the Cygnus region will be where the sun is, right there. And I'll show a couple. I did go ahead and do some sunset pictures that day, and I had vowed to come back to shoot at night. Well, I looked at this and I said, and this is a different take. I looked at this and I said, maybe not tonight. and I left it alone, but I do have every intention of walking back through that trail because I've been on the trail. So I know where to go. Just need a big bright flashlight if it's just me. What I did instead was I got to the bay. So I showed you the picture of the bay. This is Saginaw Bay. Now, if you go towards where the sun is, you see this bar right here. Behind the bar is a dark sky park, Port Crescent State Park. And so that's where I went. And that's where I took this picture. You have the beach behind where we're now on the other side.
Oh, look at that.
And I was able to get a 2-minute image
I love
of the
all
sky.
The colors.
Yep, I picked up the sky glow.
Yeah. It's got all this drama from the Milky Way, but it's got this beautiful line of composition coming in from the water, and then it goes into these pastel-like colors everywhere, and then diffusing into the night with stars ablaze everywhere. That's just really, really beautiful.
Well, I appreciate that, Scott. And even using the light pollution to affect with these trees, this is a composition, and there's a little bit of some halo from the 2-minute version of this image, but I've put the the other image. There are a couple of easier ways to get your sky seamlessly involved with a still shot of the ground. Sky replacement is something that a lot of folks will use to marry the two images together so that they can get this sort of detail. You can get this sort of detail in 2 minutes. A very solid 2-minute shot gets you these stars and these dust lanes. There is some processing that you do with your with Photoshop to highlight the dust lanes. There's the Great Rift that starts with Cygnus and goes through to where we can't see it anymore because it's going below horizon and through the light pollution. The difference, a striking difference between light pollution and sky glow. Stars shine through sky glow easily. In light pollution, however, stars do not shine very easily through that. And so but you can still use both to effect, especially if you're like highlighting these trees and the kind of where the Milky Way and the trees are there together. And then you've got, again, this is an image that basically shows that, you know, the cosmos, we're part of the cosmos.
Yeah.
We're in the cosmos. This isn't just a background. It's every bit, for me, these stars in the sky, and there could be worlds around each one of them. So when you talk about reducing stars or removing them, you might be removing an Earth-like planet somewhere out here.
That's right.
You know, that if we knew that this little star, for instance, if we were to look for this star and then we were to say, okay, this one, if it's discovered to have an Earth-like world around it, you know, then that makes this image, you know, imagine what that means. That means we're looking at another Earth-like world. So that the possibilities are there. We found a lot of exoplanets that are candidates. You know, we've yet to discover one, and maybe with the help of James Webb, we'll discover a planet that has the same mix of organics that Earth has in the same ratios. So the hunt is on. But so that's, you know, imaging the sky and doing it in different ways to try and highlight, one, places to go in Michigan if you want to see skies that are dark enough to get images like this. This is one of those places. It's Port Crescent Dark Sky Preserve. There are a couple of dark sky preserves in Michigan I've yet to visit, and they're on my list to show their beauty off as well. But my plan is to go back here. We're going back. This is a even steeper pano. Now imagine this scene, but nothing but stars up here, and the Milky Way is setting over the water, the Cygnus region somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
That's one of the shots that I'm after. But in order to do that, I just got to get through that gate, over that bridge, and walk through with my baseball bat if I have to, whatever makes me feel better. Usually animals don't want to mess with you.
No,
so
that's true.
You just, you know, you walk through.
Just don't carry any food with you.
Yeah, don't carry any food. No food, or else
no food.
Then I might be inviting trouble.
Yeah.
And so then once I get out here, it's a wide open sky. I can set up this same composition. If I want to do a panorama, I would have to do it in increments. I find that you can do a panorama if you shoot 30 seconds each, just long enough to get the sky. There's a number of ways to do it. You can do it any way you want. You can do a 2-minute exposure, another 2-minute exposure, but just keep in mind that the sky moves. So whatever exposures you decide to do, you know, they just need to be, you know, if you go to stitch them together, there just has to be ways for any software that stitches them, unless you do them yourself in Photoshop, like Gary Palmer, who's an expert at all kinds of these things. Gary Palmer can manually stitch together a panorama and make it look as seamless as this looks. And I use Lightroom to do that. So that's one of the shots I'd like to take at night, and I've shown this one. That's another one of the shots. I'd get on the beach here. This is the sandbar. There's the Pinnebog River, and there's the Saginaw Bay, you know, which empties out into Lake Huron. And take a picture here. Yeah. And so those are the goals. And let's see. Yep, that's basically it. That's all I've been up to the last couple of days. And I leave you with this picture of me waving at an old stadium we get to play at in Detroit, and just say, even anything that's been built, that's a part of whether it's been built by hand or it's been built by nature, All made of the same elements,
same stuff
and stuff. So whether it's a modern park like this, everything's a part of, there's the moon. So you could consider this an astrophotography shot.
Right.
Even though it's an old picture I took of the rays.
And you got that bright star over there too. So.
Yeah, and you got the bright star that's illuminating. I didn't get the disc here because I shot this with an iPhone, and then I tried to process it.
Oh.
And so you have, you could consider almost anything at all. If you really broaden your horizons, almost anything can be considered astrophotography or landscape. This would be considered urban landscape. And at the time, the Rays were ahead, but the Tigers ended up coming back and winning. But so I'm going to go ahead and end the presentation here so Deepthi can come on. But I'll let everyone know how my foray into the unknown, and if I get those shots that I want to get or not. And
you were definitely blowing our audience's minds with your nightscapes. So thank you.
If they want to buy some, I launched a website. So I'll put that in the chat, and then Scott, you can share.
Yeah, I'll copy it and send it over.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yep. So that's my new beginning as well.
All right.
It's https adrianbradley.photography. We managed to get a domain that was to the point. No .com, no .org, or what you normally see. It's just adrianbradley.photography. And there are a few prints. There will be more prints coming, especially those that do well in social media will likely become a print that goes for sale. So for those that would like to purchase some of my work, I've finally created a vehicle for you to do that. And you'll be able to go to that website, adrianbradley.photography, if you're interested in purchasing. Now, if you see something, a global star party, and you're interested in having it on the wall, there's no shame, plug. I will work with you to get it on your wall.
Absolutely.
So we can.
I think you're going to sell a lot of work there. So that's great.
I would love to, but more importantly, Scott, thank you for this forum, which allows us to talk about what we love, which is astronomy in all of its forms. And it's quite an honor to be able to just share the work, and it keeps me going while I go out and get all of these pictures, because it's my contribution to astronomy outreach. It's the purpose for the pictures. So
yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move from Michigan, and now we're heading all the way around the world to Nepal. And young Miss Deepthi Gautam is joining us once again here on Global Star Party. Deepthi, thank you. Thank you for coming on again.
How are you doing?
Good. It's all been good. I like your space theme background.
Oh, created by myself. Thank you. Today, I'm here with a different topic, talking about roles of astronomy in other fields, likewise biology, chemistry, and etc. So I was studying about the impact of astronomy in other fields, how it's impacting in other fields, likewise in our daily life. And today I pick up the topic about astronomy and chemistry, like how the chemistry and astronomy are related with each other. So I found something from my studies myself, and so I like to begin. First of all, let's talk about astronomy and chemistry. We know the term astrochemistry, and which is study of the abundance and reaction of molecules in the universe and their interaction with radiation. There is actually quite a lot of chemistry used in various areas of astronomy. Our big application is in identification of spectral line. Each element and molecules emit light at very specific frequencies. So we can use this fact to try to identify the composition of astronomical objects from the light they emit. Areas where chemistry is particularly important is in the studies of our solar system, where the bodies can have very interesting composition. For instance, the Curiosity rover, which was landed recently on Mars, is carrying an instrument known as CAM. And that is CAM was designed and tool to answer the question related to Martian geology that all depend on chemistry. The types of rock, its chemical makeups, and the crystal structure within it, etc. Astrochemists examine chemical composition processes for stars, planets, comets, interstellar media, and scientists in this field use the Earth-based telescope, satellite spectroscopes, etc., and explore how atoms, molecules, ions, and free radicals interact outside the Earth's atmosphere and contribute to our understanding of geological processes in other planets. Likewise, I recently mentioned about the CAM, which was used in the Curiosity rovers on Mars, and contribute to our understanding and examine molecules on other planets and in outer space to understand the conditions under which life might form. And in this episode, how learn about how scientists look for specific atoms and molecules in space and which ones they have discovered so far. Like atoms and molecules are pretty much everywhere, from the iron-heavy center of the Earth to the hydrogen-rich envelopes of distant star nuclei and their attendant electrons. It makes sense that astronomers will want to sort out what atoms and molecules make up with astronomical objects and swim in the space between them. But they cannot just reach out, grab a hunk of a star and bring it back to lab. And they must do the analysis remotely. And as always in astronomy, using only light that is passively received, we can take this object to the lab and examine. So we have to think of the alternative. Luckily for astronomers, if elements and molecules, when heated or excited or transit and emitting a specific discrete wavelength of light, the radiation in this is the atom's compound fingerprint, uniquely identifying it whether it lives on Earth or in space. In German official Joseph von Fraunhofer discovered that when he passed the sunlight through a prism, separating it into component color, a dark line appeared across the spectrum. Not content-merely to notice, he measured the specific wavelength at which the line is appeared. And the tricky things about a spectral line is that they change based on how an atom is moving relative to you. And just as a siren becomes higher in speed as a fire truck approaches you and lower as it speeds away. The spectral lines are stretched to longer wavelengths. If an atom is going away from you and it squeezes to shorter wavelength, it is coming toward you. This effect we know that effect is called Doppler effect. If planets are tugging a star back and forth in its own orbit, for example, astronomers can see the spectral line shift from space to space as the star moves relatively to the telescope. If anything is clear, it's that the chemistry we use on Earth hold up in space. As astronomers investigate with every increasing spectroscopic sensitivity, they will be able to find out more about the molecules make up other solar systems. Already they have found exoplanet atmosphere that contains carbon dioxide, oxygen, ozone, water, mixes, and many more. So astronomers believe we will even detect extraterrestrial civilization, at least they are very green, by looking for synthetic molecules like the chlorofluorocarbons with aerosols in the atmosphere. The most visible, the next use of this chemistry is in the most visible area in which chemistry that is space travels is in construction of the rocket motors for heat resistant thermal coating to fuel conservation systems. Chemists play an integral role in creating vehicles that actually fit into the orbit. Likewise, there are a lot of relativity are between the chemistry and astronomy. Likewise, in other fields, biology, medical, geology. Uh, Furthermore, studying about these all, astronomy is linked with every field we are linked with. And for example, in biology, it can be related with equipment, biological equipment, like was X-ray and different kind of medium, development of the astronomy can result in the development of the equipment which are used in the field of biology, in the field of medical field, and recently, yesterday I got to know about the cloud computing. Cloud computing is something where you can keep and store the information about the medical person or about the medical field, and it will be long lasting and very secure. And it is in the developing field. And I was very curious about knowing about that. Cloud computing, what is that? And I think I have studied about, and I collected many more resources about that. So I was planning to study about more. What actually cloud computing is. I found it interesting. Being related with IT and being related with astronomy, or I can say being related with everything. So today I talk about the chemistry. So if I continue my study, and I will be sharing it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepti. Thank you. Well, Deepti, I wanted to, I've asked everyone else on the program tonight, what blows your mind? What is the most amazing thing to you about your understanding of astronomy and the universe?
Okay, about the understanding of the universe.
Yeah, what just is so amazing to you?
It's just knowing about ourselves or knowing something related to us. I often say this, it is said that we are made of stardust. Yes. And we are the part of stardust. So we are the life form of stardust. So it's obvious that we are the part of it, and we are directly or indirectly linked with it. So I would like to say, or I like to point out that it's obvious study of ourselves, and about those, it's about talking about the mystery, talking about some interesting things. Of course, while studying about astronomy, about the universe, is interesting itself, and some kind of mystery, and some kind of we just know, oh, this way. That's something give us energy to know about the universe and study about it.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. That is when we think of all the way from the iron in our blood to the calcium in our bones to absolutely everything, we are somehow reflections and energy, intrinsically connected to the universe. So yes. Well, that's great. And it's a great way to close the 103rd Global Star Party. Thank you, Deepti. I'll bring on, who else is on with me still? Adrian's here. I think Caesar's somewhere in the background. But
yep, I decided to hang out for the end.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody in the audience. We had a great audience today. And thank you to the audience as well for sharing your own inspiration about what inspires you about astronomy and the universe itself. And we will be back probably the next time you see me. I will be in Yerevan at the Starmus event, hopefully introducing some people that are presenting there, and we will also be trying to put together a global star party while I'm gone in that country. So we'll see how it all works out. But until that time, you guys keep looking up, and we'll see you at the next global star party. Good night.
Good night, all.
And here we go. Good night.